Hello guys, welcome to Fiction Quest. So in this video, we will see, what if Naruto Awaken power of the Pirate Kings will and got married with Boa Hancock from One Piece. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. Strangers in Paradise. The waves crashed against jagged rocks, sending plumes of white spray into the azure sky. Naruto Uzumaki gasped as saltwater filled his lungs, jolting him to consciousness. His body ached as though he'd been thrown from the peak of the Hokage monument and hit every outcropping on the way down. Coughing violently, he rolled onto his side, expelling seawater from his burning lungs. "Where?" he croaked, blinking against the harsh sunlight. The last thing he remembered was the final confrontation with Kaguya, the blinding light as the dimensional portal collapsed, and then, nothing. He pushed himself up on trembling arms, taking in his surroundings. A pristine beach stretched in both directions, bordered by a dense jungle of trees unlike any he'd seen in the Land of Fire. The air felt different, heavier, saltier, charged with unfamiliar energy. "Sasuke, Sakura, Kakashi-sensei." His calls went unanswered, swallowed by the rhythmic pounding of waves. A sharp pain lanced through his abdomen, driving him back to his knees. He lifted his tattered shirt, revealing the spiral seal on his stomach pulsing with an unusual blue-gold light. "Kurama, what's happening to us?" he whispered. The Nine-Tails' familiar growl echoed in his mind, but distorted, as if coming through water. "Something's wrong, kid. This chakra, it's not like anything I've felt before. It's like the world itself is resonating with us." Naruto closed his eyes, attempting to center himself and gather natural energy for Sage Mode. Instead of the familiar warm flow, he felt something electric and wild. Oceanic in its vastness. His eyes snapped open. "This isn't our world, is it?" Before Kurama could answer, a whistling sound cut through the air. Naruto's battle-honed reflexes took over. He rolled to the side as 3 arrows thudded into the sand where he'd been kneeling. "Intruder," a female voice called out. "Man on the beach." Naruto squinted toward the tree line, mocking out several silhouettes moving with practiced stealth. Women, he realized, armed with bows and wearing minimal clothing that seemed impractical for combat. Yet the way they moved spoke of experienced warriors. "I mean no harm," he called, raising his hands. "I'm lost," and another volley of arrows forced him into a backward handspring. His chakra control faltered mid-flip, sending him tumbling awkwardly onto the sand. Whatever was happening to his energy systems, it was affecting his most basic techniques. "Kid, something's interfering with our connection," Kurama warned. "I can't give you my chakra properly." "Fantastic timing," Naruto muttered, dodging a spear thrust from a muscular woman who had suddenly appeared before him. The warriors emerged from the jungle, surrounding him in a tightening circle, at least 24 women in tribal attire, all aiming weapons at him. Their expressions ranged from curiosity to outright hostility. "An outsider man," one said, disgust evident in her voice. "How did he reach our shores?" "Perhaps he's a marine spy," suggested another, taller woman with a snake coiled around her arm. "I'm not a spy," Naruto protested. "I'm a shinobi from Konoha." There was a battle, a dimensional tear, and silence. The command came from a woman who stepped forward, her presence demanding attention. "Men are forbidden on Amazon Lily. The punishment is death." Naruto assessed his options. His chakra felt unstable, Kurama was struggling to connect with him, and he was outnumbered by warriors whose capabilities he couldn't gauge. Fighting would be dangerous for everyone involved. "Look, I don't want trouble," he said, slowly lowering himself to one knee in a gesture of peace. "I just need to figure out where I am and how to get home." The lead warrior narrowed her eyes. "Take him to the Empress. She will decide his fate." 2 of the strongest-looking warriors approached, binding his hands with rope that seemed ordinary but radiated an unusual energy. As they yanked him to his feet, Naruto noticed intricate tattoos on their skin, snakes and spirals that reminded him of sealing techniques. "What's happening to my chakra?" he asked as they marched him toward the jungle. The question earned him a sharp jab between the shoulder blades. "Men don't speak unless spoken to." The jungle path wound through towering trees and exotic flowers, the air ick with humidity and the calls of unfamiliar animals. They passed structures built into the natural landscape, homes and buildings that worked with the environment rather than against it. Women of all ages stopped their activities to stare at him, many with open hostility, others with mere curiosity. Naruto caught fragments of conversation. Man. How did he? The Empress will execute. Strange clothes. They arrived at a massive stone staircase leading to what appeared to be a palace carved into a mountain. The architecture reminded Naruto vaguely of ancient temples he'd seen during missions, but with distinctly feminine design elements, curves and spirals rather than straight lines and angles. The Snake Princess will know what to do with him, one of his captors said, shoving him forward. The climb seemed designed to exhaust prisoners before they reached judgment. By the time they crested the final step, Naruto felt the strain in his legs. The palace entrance loomed before them, guarded by women in more elaborate armor than the warriors who had captured him. Inside, the air cooled considerably. They marched through corridors lined with snake motifs and statues of warrior women. Finally, they reached an enormous chamber with a throne on a raised dais. Sunlight streamed through high windows, illuminating the empty seat. "Kneel," ordered his captor, forcing him down with a hand on his shoulder. "The Empress approaches," announced a voice from a side entrance. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. Guards stood straighter, warriors averted their eyes in reverence. Naruto felt it before he saw her, a presence so commanding it seemed to press against his skin. She entered with the grace of a predator, tall and elegant in a red dress that left little to the eye. Imagination yet somehow projected regal authority rather than vulnerability. Her raven hair fell past her waist, framing a face of such stunning beauty that Naruto momentarily forgot his predicament. What struck him most, however, were her eyes, cold and imperious, regarding him as one might look at an insect. "Empress Boa Hancock," announced an attendant. "Snake Princess and ruler of Amazon Lily." The woman settled onto her throne. One leg crossed over the other, her gaze never leaving Naruto. "A man," she said, her voice melodious despite the contempt infusing the word. "Explain how he came to be on our shores." The warrior who had captured Naruto stepped forward. "We found him on the eastern beach, Empress. He appeared from nowhere." Some of the gatherers reported seeing a strange light over the water before discovering him. Hancock leaned forward slightly. "Is he a marine? A pirate?" "He claims to be neither. He called himself a shinobi." The Empress's perfect eyebrows rose fractionally. "A shinobi? I've heard tales of such warriors from distant lands." Her gaze intensified. "What is your name, man?" Naruto met her eyes, refusing to be intimidated despite his vulnerable position. "Naruto Uzumaki, ninja of the Hidden Leaf Village and future Hokage." He paused, then added, "Or at least I was, before I ended up here." A ripple of murmurs spread through the chamber at his direct address. Hancock's eyes narrowed dangerously. "You speak to me as if we are equals," she said, her voice dropping several degrees in temperature. "Perhaps you don't understand your situation. Men who set foot on Amazon Lily are put to death. It is our most sacred law." Naruto maintained eye contact. "I didn't choose to come here. I was fighting to save my world from a goddess named Kagaya. There was a dimensional tear, and I was pulled through. I mean no disrespect to you or your people." "A likely story," Hancock replied, but Naruto caught a flicker of something in her eyes, curiosity, perhaps. "And what proof do you offer of this fantastic tale?" Before Naruto could answer, a commotion erupted outside the palace. A guard burst into the chamber, breathing heavily. "Empress." Marine vessels approaching the bay. 3 warships flying Vice Admiral colors. Hancock rose, her expression hardening. "They dare approach our shores directly. This violates our treaty with the world government." The guard bowed deeply. "They're claiming the right of pursuit, Empress. They say they detected an unauthorized entry to our waters and demand we surrender the intruder." All eyes turned to Naruto, who looked genuinely confused. "I don't know any Marines," he said. "But if they're after me, I won't bring trouble to your island. Let me speak with them." "Silence," Hancock commanded, though with less venom than before. She descended from her throne, moving with liquid grace. "No one gives demands to the Kuja. If the Marines want to violate our sovereignty, they will face the consequences." She glanced at Naruto. Your fate is still mine to decide, not theirs. She turned to her warriors. Prepare our ships. If the Marines have forgotten the strength of the Kuja, we shall remind them. As chamber emptied of all but a few guards, Hancock approached Naruto. Up close, her beauty was even more intimidating, perfect features arranged in an expression of cold calculation. If you truly are what you claim, she said quietly, then prove your worth. These Marines seem unusually determined. Could they have known of your arrival? Naruto shook his head. I don't know how they could. I barely understand what happened myself. He looked down at his bound hands. But if there's going to be a fight, I can help. Hancock studied him for a long moment, then made a sharp gesture. One of the guards stepped forward and cut his bindings. If this is a trick, the Empress said, know that I can turn you to stone with a mere touch. Naruto rubbed his wrists. That's an impressive ability. Is it a bloodline limit? It is the power of the love fruit, she replied, seeming slightly taken aback by his matter-of-fact response. Now come. I wish to see these shinobi powers for myself, if they exist. They descended through the palace to a cliff overlooking the bay. 3 marine warships had indeed entered the harbor, their white sails emblazoned with the seagull emblem Naruto didn't recognize. Smaller Kuja vessels were already moving to intercept them, but the size difference was considerable. Those ships could do a lot of damage, Naruto observed. Hancock's expression remained impassive. The Kuja have defended this island for generations. We will not fail now. A booming voice carried across the water from the lead marine ship, Amazon Lily. By authority of Marine Headquarters, surrender the dimensional anomaly detected in your waters. Failure to comply will be considered an act of hostility against the world government. Naruto glanced at Hancock. Dimensional anomaly. They're definitely talking about me. How would they know? She asked, suspicion clouding her features. I have no idea, Naruto admitted. But I won't let them attack your island because of me. He stepped to the edge of the cliff. Let me try something. Hancock watched with evident skepticism as Naruto closed his eyes, concentrating. Inside his mindscape, he found Kurama struggling against strange currents of energy. This world's power is different, but not entirely incompatible, *the Nine Tails growled. I've been adapting. Try accessing my chakra now. Naruto reached for the familiar connection. Finding it altered but functional. Golden energy began to emanate from his body, causing the Kuja warriors to step back in alarm. His whisker marks deepened, his canines elongated slightly, his eyes shifted to crimson with slitted pupils. What manner of devil fruit is this? One of the warriors gasped. It's not a fruit, Naruto explained, the golden chakra forming a rippling cloak around him. Where I come from, we have different powers. Without waiting for a response, he leapt from the cliff, a jump that should have been fatal. Instead, he channeled chakra to his feet as he descended, slowing his fall until he landed lightly on the water's surface. Standing on the waves, he faced the approaching marine vessels. On the deck of the lead ship, officers scrambled for telescopes. Devil fruit user on the water. Someone shouted. Impossible. Naruto's voice, amplified by chakra, carried across the bay. I don't know who you are or what you want with me, but I won't let you threaten these people. He formed a familiar hand sign. Shadow clone jutsu. The technique felt different, harder to control, requiring more concentration, but the results were spectacular. 20 perfect. Copies of Naruto appeared on the water's surface, each glowing with the same golden energy. From the cliff, Hancock watched with undisguised amazement as the clones charged toward the marine vessels. Moving across the water as if it were solid ground. Some leapt aboard the ships while others began forming swirling energy in their palms. Rasengan. Multiple voices called out in unison. The Spira, Ling chakra spheres impacted against the hulls and sails of the marine ships, sending shockwaves across the water. The lead vessel's mast cracked and toppled, crushing cannons and sending marines diving overboard. Naruto himself approached the command ship, where a man in a white coat, clearly the leader, stood calmly amidst the chaos. Unlike his panicking subordinates, this man radiated confidence and power. Interesting, the marine officer said as Naruto landed on the deck before him. Not a devil fruit at all, is it? Something entirely different. Naruto sized up his opponent. Tall, middle-aged. with a scar running down one cheek and a bearing that spoke of decades of combat experience. "Who are you, and how did you know I arrived here?" Naruto demanded. The man smiled thinly. "Vice Admiral Tozen. As for how we knew, the world government monitors dimensional disturbances. They've become more common recently." His hand moved to the hilt of his sword. "You should come with us willingly. The scientists at Marine headquarters are most interested in studying you. Not interested in being anyone's lab rat," Naruto replied, feeling Kurama's chakra surge protectively. Tozen drew his blade with blinding speed. The metal gleaming black, a color Naruto had never seen in a sword before. "I wasn't actually asking." The Vice Admiral moved with incredible speed, closing the distance between them in a heartbeat. Naruto barely managed to dodge, feeling the blade slice through the air where his head had been. He counterattacked with a chakra-enhanced punch that Tozen blocked with his forearm. The impact sending shockwaves across the deck. "Impressive strength," Tozen commented. "But untrained for our world." He made a gesture with his free hand, and suddenly Naruto felt an invisible force slam into him, sending him skidding across the deck. "That wasn't chakra," Kurama noted. "Something else. Be careful, kid." Naruto recovered quickly, creating more shadow clones that attacked from multiple angles. Tozen dispatched them efficiently, his movements economical and precise. When Naruto formed a Rasengan and drove it toward the Vice Admiral's chest, Tozen's blade intercepted it. Out of being destroyed by the spinning chakra, the black sword somehow absorbed the energy, causing Tozen to slide back only a few feet. "Hockey and sea stone," the Vice Admiral explained, noting Naruto's surprise. "Your energy isn't so different from ours, dimensional traveler. Just wilder." On the neighboring ships, Naruto's clones were winning their battles against the regular Marines, but Tozen was proving to be on another level entirely. The Vice Admiral sheathed his sword and raised both hands. "Enough games. Iron body." When Naruto's next attack landed, it felt like punching solid steel. Tozen didn't even flinch before grabbing Naruto's wrist and flinging him into the ship's railing. "The pirate Empress won't protect you," Tozen called out as Naruto struggled to his feet. "She values her warlord status too much to risk it for a stranger." Naruto spat blood from his mouth. "I'm not asking anyone to protect me." He closed his eyes briefly, centering himself. When he opened them, EY had changed. Golden irises with horizontal bar pupils, indicating his entry into an imperfect sage mode. The natural energy of this world felt strange, but he'd managed to gather enough. "This ends now," Naruto said, his voice carrying a new authority. He moved with renewed speed, appearing behind Tozen faster than the Vice Admiral could track. His sage-enhanced strike connected squarely with Tozen's back, sending the Marine officer crashing through the ship's cabin. Before Tozen could recover, Naruto formed a larger Rasengan, this one infused with natural energy. Sage Art. Massive Rasengan. The impact when it connected was catastrophic. The ship's deck split in two, the hull fractured, and seawater began pouring in. Tozen, bleeding and disheveled but still conscious, glared at Naruto through the destruction. "You've made a powerful enemy today," he warned, before shouting orders to his remaining men to abandon ship. As the Marines scrambled for lifeboats, Naruto leapt back to the water's surface. His remaining clones returned to him, dispelling and transferring their knowledge of the other battles. The Kuja ships had engaged the other Marine vessels, demonstrating that the ISL And's warriors were more than capable of defending their home. Exhaustion suddenly hit Naruto like a physical blow. Sage mode dissipated, and he dropped to one knee on the water's surface, struggling to maintain the chakra control keeping him from sinking. A small boat approached, Hancock herself standing at its prow. She regarded the sinking Marine flagship with an expression of cool approval before turning her gaze to Naruto. "Perhaps there is truth to your claims after all, Shinobi," she said, extending a hand to help him aboard. "Though you look ready to collapse." Naruto accepted her help, surprised by the strength in her slender arm as she pulled him into the boat. "Using chakra feels different here," he explained, dropping onto a bench. "Like I'm trying to channel it through water instead of air." Hancock studied him with those penetrating eyes. "The Marines will return with greater numbers. They rarely show such interest in a single individual, unless that individual threatens their power. suggested one of Hancock's companions, a tall woman with green hair. Elder Nyan says the world government fears what they cannot control. The boat returned to shore, where a crowd of Kuja warriors had gathered to witness the battle. Their expressions had changed from hostility to cautious respect as they watched Naruto disembark on unsteady legs. "Take him to the healing springs," Hancock commanded. "And post additional watches. The Marines will not catch us unprepared again." As two warriors moved to support him, Naruto looked back at Hancock. "Thank you for not turning me over to them." A hint of a smile touched her lips. "The Kuja bow to no outside authority in matters of our island. Your fate remains in my hands, Naruto Uzumaki, not theirs." Something in the way she saw his name sent an unexpected shiver down his spine. The healing springs turned out to be natural hot pools infused with medicinal herbs. After an initial awkward moment when the Kuja healers expected him to disrobe completely for treatment, apparently modesty worked differently on Amazon Lily. Naruto was allowed to keep his lower garments while they tended to his injuries. "Your energy pathways are unlike anything I've seen," commented the chief healer, an older woman named Belladonna. "They resemble our hockey circuits but with different flow patterns." "Hockey?" Naruto questioned, wincing as she applied a stinging salve to a cut on his shoulder. "The manifestation of spiritual will," she explained. "All Kuja warriors learn to use it. There are different forms: observation hockey to sense attacks and presences, armament hockey to harden one's body or weapons, and the rarest form, conqueror's hockey, which can overwhelm the wills of others." Naruto thought about Tozen's unexplainable abilities during their fight. "That explains a few things. Their hockey sounds similar to chakra applications," Kurama observed within Naruto's mind. "But derived from will rather than physical and spiritual energy. Interesting. How are you feeling now?" Naruto asked his tailed companion. "Better. This world's energy is becoming more familiar. Give me time, and I'll adapt completely." The healing session continued for another hour, during which Naruto learned more about Amazon Lily and its all-female warrior society. The Kuja, it seemed, rarely interacted with the outside world except through their pirate crew, which ventured out for trade and information gathering. "The Empress leads the Kuja pirates," explained a younger healer named Iris. "She is also a warlord of the sea, one of 7 all pirates who work with the world government. Yet she opposed the Marines today," Naruto noted. "The Snake Princess tolerates the world government, she does not serve them," Belladonna clarified. Quote, "They fear her power too much to challenge her directly." After the healing session, Naruto was provided with fresh clothes, a simple tunic and pants in the local style, though designed for male proportions, which suggested they occasionally had visitors despite their prohibitions. A young warrior named Mari was assigned as his guide and, he suspected, his guard. She led him through the village. The women still regarded him with suspicion but no longer open hostility. Children peeked from behind their mothers, giggling when he waved at them. "The Empress wishes to see you at sunset," Mari informed him as they walked. "Until then, you may rest and recover your strength." "I appreciate that, but I'd rather learn more about this world," Naruto replied. "Everything here is so different from where I come from." Mari seemed surprised by his interest. "What would you like to know?" "Everything. The Grand Line, devil fruits, the world government, all of it." They settled in a quiet garden. Here Mari hesitantly began explaining the basics of the world. Naruto listened intently, asking questions that revealed his quick mind beneath his straightforward demeanor. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, he had gained a rudimentary understanding of this strange new reality: oceans divided by the Red Line and Grand Line, islands with their own magnetic fields, fruits that granted powers at the cost of one's ability to swim, and a world government of questionable morality. "It's time," Mari finally said, rising. "The Empress does not like to be kept waiting." They made their way back to the palace, climbing the long staircase as the sky turned crimson and gold. Instead of the throne room, however, Mari led him to a smaller chamber overlooking the sea. Hancock was there, accompanied by 2 women who bore a striking resemblance to her sisters, Naruto guessed. "Leave us," Hancock commanded. Mari bowed and departed, closing the door behind her. "These are my sisters," Hancock confirmed his suspicion. "Marigold and Sandersonia." The sisters nodded but remained silent, obviously deferring to Hancock in all matters. Your display of power today was unexpected, Hancock began, gesturing for Naruto to sit at the low table where a meal had been laid out. It seems your shinobi abilities are indeed different from devil fruits or haki. Naruto settled cross-legged on a cushion. Where I come from, we harness chakra, a combination of physical and spiritual energy. Every living thing has it. And the golden form you took? Sandersonia asked, speaking for the first time. Naruto hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. In his world, Jinchuriki were often feared and shunned. But these people had no such prejudices. I carry a being of immense power within me, he explained. A nine-tailed fox named Kurama. We're partners. His chakra gives me enhanced abilities when I draw on it. Rather than fear, he saw interest in their eyes. A partnership with a power beyond human, Marigold mused. Not unlike a zone-type devil fruit, yet clearly distinct. Hancock studied him with unnerving intensity. And how did one so young come to host such a power? The question touched on painful memories. But Naruto had long since made peace with his past. I was born the night Kurama attacked my village. The fourth Hokage, our leader, sealed him inside me to save everyone. For years, I didn't know why people avoided me. When I learned the truth, I eventually found a way to connect with Kurama instead of fighting against him. You speak of your burden without bitterness, Hancock observed. Why? Naruto smiled slightly. It shaped who I am. And in the end, it gave me the strength to protect the people I care about. Something shifted in Hancock's expression, a momentary softening, quickly masked. The Marines will not abandon their pursuit, she said, changing the subject. Vice Admiral Tozen is known for his persistence, and if he reports your abilities to Marine headquarters, they will send stronger forces. I don't want to bring trouble to your island, Naruto said. If there's a way for me to return to my world, I should find it. And if there isn't? Sandersonia asked. The question hung in the air, giving voice to a fear Naruto had been suppressing. What if he truly was stranded here, separated forever from everyone he knew? Then I'll adapt, he answered finally. It's what I've always done. Hancock rose gracefully. Tomorrow, we will discuss your future. For tonight, you will be given quarters in the palace. Consider yourself a guest of the Kuja, not a PR. Soner. But remember that our laws regarding men on this island are temporarily suspended for you alone. Naruto stood and bowed, a gesture of respect rather than subservience. Thank you, Snake Princess. As her sisters escorted Naruto to his quarters, Hancock remained by the window, watching the stars emerge over the ocean. Something about the golden-haired shinobi disturbed her carefully maintained emotional equilibrium. His open manner, his lack of the typical male gaze that reduced her to an object of desire, his willingness to fight for strangers, all of it was unexpected. More disturbing still was her own reaction to him. For a woman who had built impenetrable walls around her heart, the faintest crack in that defense was cause for concern. Troublesome man, she murmured to the night breeze, unaware of how significant those words would become. Dawn broke over Amazon Lily with a chorus of exotic birds and the distant sounds of warriors beginning their morning training. Naruto woke early, his body clock still adhering to shinobi discipline despite his strange surroundings. The chamber he'd been given was comfortable but sparse, a sleeping mat, a small table, and a window overlooking the jungle canopy. He settled into a cross-legged position, closing his eyes to enter his inner mindscape. Within that familiar space, he found Kurama watching the flowing currents of energy that represented his chakra network. Things still feel off, Naruto observed. The massive fox nodded. This world's energy is fundamentally similar to chakra but organized differently. I've been studying it while you sleep. I believe there. Haki is actually a specialized application of what we would call spiritual energy. Can I learn to use it? Probably. And more importantly, I think I'm beginning to understand what happened during our battle with Kagaya. Kurama's tales swept through the mindscape, creating ripples in the energy flow. When she tried to merge dimensions, the resulting tear didn't just transport us physically. It created a resonance between your chakra and this world's fundamental energy, what they call the voice of all things. Voice of all things. What's that? I'm not entirely sure yet. The fox admitted, but it seems related to the power that some rare individuals possess here, those with the will of D. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Naruto opened his eyes, returning to the physical world. "Come in." Mari entered, carrying a tray of food. "The Empress requests your presence for morning training," she announced. "She wishes to observe your abilities more closely." Naruto's eyebrows rose in surprise. "She trains with her warriors. The Snake Princess is the strongest among us," Mari replied with evident pride. "All Kuja learn from her example." After a quick meal of unfamiliar but delicious fruits and fish, Naruto followed Mari to a large training ground behind the palace. Dozens of Kuja warriors were already engaged in various exercises, using weapons and hand-to-hand techniques that reminded him somewhat of taijutsu. Hancock stood in the center of the field, demonstrating a move to a group of younger warriors. She wore a more practical outfit than the previous day, fitted pants and a loose top that allowed freedom of movement while still managing to accentuate her figure. When she executed a perfect spinning kick that would have made Rock Lee proud, Naruto couldn't help but admire her technique. She noticed his arrival immediately, dismissing her students with a gesture. "Naruto Uzumaki," she called, "show us these shinobi techniques of yours." The training ground fell silent as all eyes turned to him. Naruto stepped forward, aware of the scrutiny but not intimidated by it. After years of working to gain recognition in Konoha, he was accustomed to having to prove himself. "In my world, ninja train in ninjutsu, genjutsu, and taijutsu," he explained, moving to an open space. "Ninjutsu uses chakra to create effects, like this." He formed hand signs, modulating his chakra carefully in the strange environment. Wind style. Breakthrough. A controlled gust of wind swept across the training ground, strong enough to rustle the trees but not damage them. The Kuja warriors murmured in appreciation. "Genjutsu creates illusions affecting the senses, but it's not my specialty," Naruto continued. "And taijutsu is hand-to-hand combat. Show me this taijutsu," Hancock challenged, stepping into the sparring circle. Naruto hesitated. "I don't want to. You fear injuring me." Her tone made it clear this was the wrong answer. "No, Then defend yourself, shinobi." She moved with blinding speed, her leg sweeping toward his head. Naruto blocked with his forearm, surprised by the force behind the blow. He countered with a palm strike that she easily evaded, flowing around his attack like water. Their sparring intensified, Naruto using the academy-taught style rather than his usual improvisational approach. Hancock matched him technique for technique, her movements precise and lethal. She was testing him, he realized, gauging his training and reflexes. After several minutes of increasingly complex exchanges, Hancock stepped back. "Your foundation is solid, but your style lacks refinement." "Who taught you?" "I had many teachers," Naruto replied, not even breathing hard. "Iruka-sensei, Kakashi-sensei, Jiraiya the Toad Sage, and countless battles. Experience is indeed the harshest teacher," she acknowledged. "Now, show me your most powerful technique, one that doesn't destroy my training ground," she added with a pointed look. Naruto grinned. "All right, but I'll need some space." The warriors backed away as he summoned a shadow clone. Together, they began forming a Rasengan, but this one was different, larger, with four blade-like protrusions spinning around a central core. "Wind style. Rasenshuriken," he announced, holding the buzzing, screeching technique aloft. The chakra constru court illuminated the training ground with its intense light, causing many of the Kuja to shield their eyes. "Impressive," Hancock admitted. "What does it do?" "It attacks at the cellular level," Naruto explained. "Thousands of microscopic blades sever all chakra, or in your world, probably hockey, pathways. It's forbidden to use against allies even in training because the damage can't be healed conventionally." He allowed the technique to dissipate. "I developed it to surpass my father's jutsu." "Your father was a warrior of note?" Hancock inquired. "The fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze," Naruto replied, a hint of pride in his voice. Known as the Yellow Flash for his Flying Thunder God technique, he could teleport instantly across battlefields. Before Hancock could respond, a commotion at the edge of the training ground drew their attention. Elder Nyan, the diminutive former Empress Naruto had been introduced to the previous evening, hurried toward them with alarming speed for one so ancient. "Hancock, Sea Kings approaching the western shore," she called out. Many of them. A full school. The Empress's expression hardened. Sea Kings rarely venture so close to our island in such numbers. Could be the disturbance from yesterday's battle, suggested Sandersonia, who had been observing the training. Blood in the water often attracts them. Gather the hunters, Hancock ordered. Well, I'll need to drive them back before they damage the coastal villages. What are Sea Kings? Naruto asked as the Kuja warriors rushed to prepare. Massive sea monsters, Mari explained quickly. Some are as large as mountains. They typically avoid Amazon lily because of our strength, but occasionally they test our waters. I'll help, Naruto offered. Hancock gave him an appraising look. Your techniques are impressive on land. Can you fight in water as well? I can walk on water using chakra control, he replied. And I have a few tricks that might work against large creatures. Very well, she turned to her sisters. Take him with you to the western shore. Consider this a further demonstration of his abilities. Marigold and Sandersonia nodded, motioning for Naruto to follow them. As they rushed through the jungle toward the western shore, Naruto heard the distant sounds of splashing and roaring, sounds far too large to be made by normal creatures. When they emerged from the tree line onto a cliff overlooking the western bay, Naruto finally understood what they meant by sea monsters. Enormous serpentine creatures, each easily the size of the Hokage monument, thrashed in the waters below. Some had multiple heads, others bore massive fangs or horns, and all radiated a predatory intent that Naruto could sense even at a distance. There are at least 7 of them, Sandersonia observed, her body already beginning to transform, skin taking on a serpentine pattern, muscles expanding. The villagers have been evacuated, reported a Kuja scout. But the fishing fleet is directly in their path. Marigold, similarly transforming into a half-snake form, pointed to tiny dots on the water, boats desperately trying to reach shore before the Sea Kings noticed them. Without hesitation, Naruto bit his thumb, drawing blood. I know someone who can help with this. He flashed through hand signs. Summoning jutsu, he slammed his palm onto the ground, expecting the familiar puff of smoke. That would bring forth one of the toads from Mount Myoboku. Instead, the summoning circle glowed an unusual blue-gold color, and the smoke that appeared was far more substantial than normal. When it cleared, a massive toad sat on the clifftop, but not Gamabunta or any of the toads Naruto recognized. This one was differently colored, with markings Naruto had never seen before. Who dares summon me from the sacred pond? The toad demanded in a booming voice. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, he replied, bewildered. I was trying to summon Gamabunta. The toad peered down at him with golden eyes. I know no Gamabunta. I am Gamamakai, guardian of the boundary waters. His massive head swiveled to take in the scene. Ah, I see. The worlds have thinned here, allowing my summoning across the divide. O's that mean. No time for explanations, young sage, Gamamakai interrupted, noticing the Sea Kings. Those are formidable beasts. Shall we dance? Without waiting for an answer, the enormous toad leapt from the cliff, sailing through the air toward the nearest Sea King. Naruto jumped onto his head at the last moment, channeling chakra to stay attached. The Kuja warriors stared in shock at the massive amphibian joining their battle, but quickly recovered. Marigold and Sandersonia, in their complete snake forms, slithered down the cliffside with impressive speed. Gamamakai collided with the first Sea King, his powerful legs delivering a kick that sent the creature reeling backward. I sense you can use natural energy, boy, the toad called to Naruto. Do so now. It flows strongly in this world. Naruto nodded, settling into a meditative posture atop the toad's head. Gathering natural energy here felt different, wilder, more primal, saturated with the essence of the sea. When he opened his eyes in sage mode, he could sense everything. The Sea King's movements, the Kuja warriors engaging them from smaller boats, the frightened fisher women trying to reach shore. There, he pointed to W. Here 2 Sea Kings were converging on a fishing vessel that had fallen behind the others. They won't make it in time. Then we shall intercept, Gamamakai replied, launching himself through the air again. They landed between the fishing boat and the approaching Sea Kings, creating a massive splash. Naruto formed hand signs. Water style. Water wall. The technique pulled seawater into a protective barrier, momentarily confusing the Sea Kings. It wouldn't hold them long, but it bought time for the fishing boat to gain distance. Impressive adaptation, Gamamakai commented. Water jutsu are not typically your strength, are they? Not really, Naruto admitted, but this world's energy makes water manipulation easier somehow. From nearby vessels, he could see Marigold and Sandersonia engaging other sea kings. Despite their smaller size, the snake women moved with incredible speed and strength, landing blows that actually seemed to hurt the massive creatures. The small vessel is clear, Gamamakai announced. Now we may fight without restraint. The toad's cheeks bulged before he spat a massive glob of oil at the nearest sea king. Naruto immediately followed with a fire technique, igniting the oil. The sea king roared in pain as flames spread across its scales. Sage art. Massive Rasengan. Naruto created an enormous spiraling sphere, leaping from Gamamakai's head to drive it into the stunned creature's body. The impact sent shockwaves through the water, creating a temporary whirlpool. As that sea king retreated into deeper waters, 3 more converged on them. Naruto created shadow clones, each preparing Rasenshurikens. The screeching sound of the techniques filled the air moments before they connected with their targets, slicing through tough scales and sensitive neural pathways. The battle continued for nearly an hour, with Kuja warriors demonstrating why they were feared throughout the Grand Line. Their arrows, infused with haki, penetrated Sea King hide as if it were paper. Their agility on the small, maneuverable boats allowed them to attack and retreat before the massive creatures could respond. Naruto and Gamamakai worked in tandem, the toad's physical strength and water techniques complementing Naruto's Sage Mode abilities. By the time the last Sea King retreated, bellowing in pain and frustration, the western shore was littered with scales the size of dinner tables and the sea was tinged red with monster blood. As they returned to shore, Naruto noticed Hancock standing on the beach, her expression unreadable as she watched him dismiss the summoning. Gamamakai vanished with a final cryptic message. The boundaries grow thinner, young sage. We shall meet again when the voices align. What manner of creature was that? Hancock asked as Naruto approached. Exhaustion evident in his slightly slouched posture. A toad summon, he explained. Though not one I've met before. In my world, I have a contract with the toads of Mount Myoboku. And they simply appear at your command to do battle. It's more of a partnership, Naruto clarified. They can refuse if they want to. And normally I'd summon Gamabunta or Gamakichi, but something about this world changed the connection. Marigold and Sandersonia returned to their human forms, joining them on the beach. The fishing fleet is safe, Marigold reported. No casualties among our warriors, though 3 suffered injuries. Your assistance was valuable, Hancock acknowledged, the admission seemingly difficult for her. The Sea Kings would have reached the village otherwise. Coming from her, Naruto sensed this was high praise indeed. Happy to help. Though I should mention, Gamamakai said something about boundaries growing thinner, and voices aligning. I think he was talking about whatever brought me here. Hancock's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Elder Nyan mentioned ancient legends about worlds beyond our own. Perhaps there is more to your arrival than mere accident. She earned to survey the damage to the bay. Fallen trees, beaches reshaped by the bottle's force, massive scales washing ashore. For now, we must secure the western shore. The blood in the water may attract more predators. As the Kuja organized recovery efforts, Hancock surprised Naruto by addressing him directly again. You fought to protect people you barely know, at considerable risk to yourself. It wasn't quite a question. But Naruto answered anyway. That's what I've always done. Power is meaningless if you don't use it to protect others. Something flickered across her perfect features, recognition, perhaps, of a sentiment she understood despite her apparent coldness. Most men I've encountered seek power for themselves alone. I'm not most men, Naruto replied with a slight smile. No, she agreed, turning away. You are not, which makes you all the more dangerous. She walked away before he could respond, leaving him to wonder if she meant dangerous to Amazon Lily, or to herself. The following days established a routine. Mornings were spent training with the Kuja warriors, who gradually accepted Naruto's presence, if not with friendship then at least with professional respect. His shadow clones proved useful for giving multiple warriors sparring partners, and in return, they taught him the basics of armament haki. Afternoons were devoted to learning about this strange EU whirled through conversations with Elder Nyan, who seemed to find his curiosity refreshing. She explained the politics of the world government, the Revolutionary Army, the Four Blues, and the unpredictable dangers of the Grand Line. The weather here changes in moments, she told him during one session. Islands can be summer paradises or frozen wastelands despite being neighbors. Log poses are he only reliable navigation tool because traditional compasses fail. And the Pirate King, this Gold Roger, found the ultimate treasure at the end of the Grand Line. Naruto asked. Gal D. Roger, Nyan corrected. The D is significant, though few remember it now. And yes, he reached Laugh Tale, the final island, discovering the treasure known as One Piece. His execution 22 years ago sparked the Great Pirate Era. Naruto's brow furrowed. You mentioned the D is important. Does it have anything to do with what they call the voice of all things? Nyan's eyes widened slightly. Where did you hear that term? Kurama, the Nine Tails, mentioned it. He thinks it's connected to how I ended up here. The diminutive elder studied him with new interest. Those who bear the initial D in T air name are said to be natural enemies of gods, carriers of an ancient will. And yes, some have been known to hear the voice of all things, the ability to understand creatures no normal human can comprehend. To sense intentions and histories without words. Like how the first Hokage could communicate with tailed beasts, Kurama observed within Naruto's mind. Is it possible for someone not born with this D to develop such abilities? Naruto asked. I know of no such case, Nyan replied. But you are from another world entirely. Perhaps your chakra resonates with this power in ways we don't understand. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a Kuja messenger. Elder Nyan, Empress Hancock requests your presence, and the man's, immediately. A marine ship approaches under flag of parley. Nyan's wrinkled face creased with concern. So soon. They usually allow more time between attempts. They hurried to the palace, where Hancock and her sisters were already preparing to meet the marine envoy. The Empress wore her most intimidating regalia, her expression cold and regal. A single ship, Marigold reported. Smaller than the warships from before. They're requesting permission to send a representative ashore. Under flag of parley, we are bound by custom to hear them, Hancock said, though her tone suggested she found the custom distasteful. But they will meet us on the beach, not in our sanctuary. She glanced at Naruto. They undoubtedly come for you. It would be simpler to surrender you to them. Though her words were harsh, Naruto detected something else beneath them, a test, perhaps, of his reaction. If my presence puts your people at risk, I understand, he said carefully. But from what I've learned about the world government, I doubt their interest in me is benevolent. Hancock's perfect lips curved in the faintest smile. Indeed, the world government's scientific division has a history of unethical experimentation. I have no intention of delivering anyone to such a fate. Her expression hardened again. Besides, you have proven useful to Amazon Lily. The Kuja do not surrender their assets easily. The meeting was arranged on the eastern beach, neutral ground. Close enough to the jungle for the Kuja to disappear quickly if necessary, but open enough to prevent ambush. Hancock sat on an ornate throne carried down from the palace, Sandersonia and Marigold flanking her. Naruto stood slightly behind them, at Hancock's insistence. Let them see you are under my protection, she had instructed. But not as an equal. The Marine representative was not Vice Admiral Tozan, as they had expected, but a slender woman in a crisp white uniform adorned with the insignia of a Rear Admiral. She approached alone, seemingly unconcerned about being surrounded by Kuja warriors. Empress Hancock, she greeted with a formal bow. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. State your business and depart, Rear Admiral, Hancock replied coldly. Amazon. Lily has no patience for marine intrusions. The woman smiled thinly. I am Rear Admiral Sashi, representing Marine Science Division. I come regarding the dimensional anomaly currently in your custody. Her eyes shifted to Naruto. Or should I say, the dimensional traveler. The man is under my protection as a guest of Amazon Lily, Hancock stated. Whatever interest the Marines have in him is irrelevant. Sashi's smile didn't waver. With respect, Empress, this matter extends beyond territorial considerations. The world government has recorded 17 dimensional events in the past year, tears in the fabric of our world. This is the first that has resulted in a traveler crossing over. She produced a small device from her pocket, a cube that projected an image into the air between them. It showed swirling energy patterns that Naruto recognized immediately. This is the energy signature we detected when you arrived, Sashi explained, addressing Naruto directly. It bears similarities to devil fruit energy but with fundamental differences. Our scientists believe studying you could help prevent potentially catastrophic dimensional collapses. You mean experimenting on him? Sandersonia corrected with a hiss. Controlled observation, Sashi countered smoothly. For the safety of all. Naruto stepped forward. I want to understand what happened as much as you do. But I won't be anyone's laboratory specimen. Perhaps I wasn't clear. Sashi's tone hardened slightly. This isn't a request. The world government considers dimensional breaches a threat to global security. Fleet A. Admiral Sakazuki has authorized whatever means necessary to secure cooperation. Hancock rose from her throne, her height allowing her to look down at the rear admiral. Perhaps I wasn't clear, she echoed, her voice dropping to a dangerous purr. The man is under my protection. Any attempt to remove him from Amazon Lily will be considered an act of war against the Kuja and a personal insult to me. The air between them seemed to crackle with tension. Sashi's hand drifted toward her weapon, while Kuja warriors knocked arrows in their bows. The 5 elders will hear of this, Sashi warned. Your status as a warlord doesn't place you above world government authority. Then tell your elders this, Hancock replied. I did not spend years earning my freedom to bow to those who would enslave others for their purposes. The Kuja remain sovereign, regardless of titles bestowed by old men who fear what they cannot control. Something in her words struck Naruto deeply, the mention of earning freedom. The implication of a past under someone's control. There was history there, raw and painful. Sashi stared at Hancock for a long moment before inclining her head slightly. I will convey your position. But be warned, this matter will not end here. As she turned to leave, she paused, looking back at Naruto. If you truly care about these people, consider what your presence here might cost them. The Marines can be persistent when they believe global security is at stake. After the Marine ship departed, the tension among the Kuja remained palpable. Hancock dismissed her warriors but asked Naruto to walk with her along the shoreline, away from listening ears. You risked much to protect me, Naruto observed when they were alone. The rear admiral wasn't wrong about the potential consequences. The world government has always underestimated the Kuja, Hancock replied. We have defended our sovereignty for generations. Still, I don't want to be the cause of conflict for people who've shown me kindness. Hancock stopped walking, turning to face him. The setting sun cast her features in gold and shadow, softening her usual imperious expression. Do you know why the law forbidding men on Amazon Lily exists? Naruto shook his head. Generations ago, Kuja who ventured into the outside world returned with tales of how men viewed women, as possessions, as lesser beings, as objects for their pleasure or service. The few men who found our shores often confirmed these accounts through their actions. The law was created to protect our way of life, our dignity. She looked out over the water. My sisters and I, we have particular reason to guard against outsiders. We know firsthand the cruelty the world is capable of. Though she didn't elaborate, Naruto sensed the pain behind her words. I understand protecting what's precious to you, he said quietly. In my world, I fought a war to defend everyone I cared about. And yet you show no bitterness toward those who would exploit you, she observed. No hatred for the Marines who would cage you for study. Naruto shrugged. Hatred is a cycle. I've seen what it does, how it consumes people, turns them into something they never wanted to be. I choose a different path. A naive philosophy, Hancock commented, but without her usual dismissive tone. The world rarely rewards such thinking. Maybe not, Naruto agreed. But I'd rather fail trying to break the cycle than succeed by continuing it. She studied him with those penetrating eyes that seemed to see through all pretense. You are a strange man, Naruto Uzumaki. I've been called worse, he replied with a grin. The faintest smile touched her lips in response, a genuine one, not the calculating expression she typically wore. It transformed her face, making her beauty more accessible, more human. The moment was shattered by a thunderous boom that shook the very air around them. They turned to see a column of light piercing the evening sky from somewhere deep in the jungle. "What is that?" Hancock demanded, all softness vanishing from her demeanor. "I don't know, but..." Naruto's words caught in his throat as pain lanced through his abdomen. "The seal contain." Kurama glowed brightly through his shirt, pulsing in rhythm with the distant light. "The dimensional energy," Kurama growled. "It's resonating with us. Something's happening." Warriors were already rushing toward them. Led by Sandersonia, sister. Unknown energy detected in the central ruins. Elder Nyan says it matches the signature from when he arrived. She pointed to Naruto. "We need to go there." Naruto said through gritted teeth, fighting through the pain. "Whatever that is, it's connected to how I got here." Hancock assessed the situation quickly. "Gather our strongest warriors," she commanded Sandersonia. "And bring Elder Nyan. If this is another dimensional tear, we must contain it." As they raced through the jungle, Naruto's pain intensified. His vision blurred, showing momentary flashes of another place, Konoha. The Hokage monument, familiar faces looking skyward at a similar column of light. "They're trying to find me," he realized aloud. "My friends. They're opening a connection." The ancient ruins at the island's center were rarely visited by the Kuja, a remnant of a civilization predating even their earliest records. Stone monoliths carved with indecipherable symbols surrounded a central clearing where the column of light originated. The air shimmered with energy, creating a translucent barrier through which distorted images could be seen. "It's a window between worlds," Elder Nyan breathed. Having arrived moments after them, the ancient text spoke of such phenomena, rare alignments when the veil between realities thins. Naruto approached the barrier, drawn by an instinct he couldn't explain. Within the shifting images, he could make out figures: Sasuke, Sakura, Kakashi, others from Konoha working around what appeared to be a complex ceiling array. "They found a way to reach across," he murmured. "They're trying to bring me back. Can you communicate with them?" Hancock asked, her voice carefully neutral. Naruto reached toward the barrier, his hand passing through with surprising ease. The sensation was like plunging into ice water, numbing yet invigorating. On the other side, he could see his friends react to his partial appearance, their esprit. Seijun's shifting from concentration to shock to hope. "Naruto." Sakura's voice came through distorted but recognizable. "We found you. The seal will only hold for a few minutes, you need to come through now." "The dimensional alignment is unstable," Sasuke added, his mismatched eyes intense. "This is our only chance." Naruto felt a pull toward his home world, a yearning to return to familiar faces and places. Yet something held him back, an awareness that stepping through would sever his connection to this world completely. He turned to look at Hancock, whose face had reverted to its cold mask, revealing nothing of her thoughts. But in her eyes, he saw something unexpected, a vulnerability quickly concealed. "You should go," she said, her voice imperial and distant. "Your world clearly needs its hero returned." Around them, the Kuja warriors watched in silence, many having come to respect the strange man who had fought alongside them against sea kings and marines. Elder Nyan's ancient eyes held understanding of the momentous choice before him. "Naruto, hurry," Kakashi called through the barrier. "The connection is weakening." Naruto stood on the threshold between worlds, a decision or him that would define the rest of his life. Return to the world he knew, to his dream of becoming Hokage, to the people who had finally acknowledged him after years of loneliness. Or remain in this strange new world, facing unknown dangers and possibilities. His gaze returned to Hancock, and in that moment, he saw beyond her carefully constructed walls, saw the woman who had protected her people fiercely. Who had stood against corrupt authority, who carried wounds she never spoke of. In her, he recognized a kindred spirit, someone who understood isolation and the struggle to define oneself beyond others' expectations. The barrier between worlds flickered, the connection weakening. Time was running out. "I'm sorry," Naruto said, but not to his friends on the other side. His eyes remained on Hancock. "I can't go yet." He withdrew his hand from the barrier, stepping fully back into the world of Amazon Lily. "There's something I need to do here first. Something important." Through the fading connection, he called to his friends. "I'm okay. I'm safe." But there are people here who need me too. I'll find another way back, I promise. The shock on their faces was the last thing he saw before the column of light collapsed. The barrier between worlds sealing shut with a thunderous implosion that knocked everyone to the ground. The ancient ruins stood silent once more, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Naruto felt a profound sense of both loss and certainty as he rose to his feet. He had made his choice. Not permanently, perhaps, but significantly. Hancock approached him, her expression unreadable. You chose to stay, she stated, as if confirming a fact she couldn't quite believe. Why? Naruto met her gaze steadily. The Marines won't stop coming. The dimensional tears won't stop happening. And I don't abandon people who've helped me, especially not when there's still danger. Her eyes searched his for deception, finding none. You sacrificed your return to your world, for Amazon Lily. For now, Naruto replied, my friends will find another way. They're stubborn like that. His smile was tinged with sadness but not regret. Besides, I think I'm here for a reason. The connection between my chakra and this world's energy, the voice of all things that Kurama mentioned, there's something I need to understand. Hancock's perfect features betrayed the faintest hint of what might have been relief before her imperial mask returned. Then Amazon Lily will continue to grant you sanctuary, Naruto Uzumaki. And in return, you will help us defend against whatever comes next, be it Marines or dimensional disturbances. As they walked back through the jungle toward the palace, Naruto felt Kurama's presence stirring within him. You could have gone home, kid, the Nine-Tails observed. I know, Naruto replied silently, but something tells me our journey isn't finished here yet. And I never go back on my word, that's my ninja way. The Snake Princess is more affected by your decision than she shows. Kurama noted with something like amusement. Humans are fascinating creatures, regardless of which world they inhabit. Naruto glanced ahead to where Hancock walked, her proud posture and flowing hair gilded by moonlight filtering through the canopy. Something had changed between them in that moment at the ruins, a recognition, perhaps, that transcended worlds and words. Yeah, he agreed, they really are. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. Hearts and Hurricanes. The eastern shores of Amazon Lily glowed golden in the early morning light. Sea foam kissed the sand before retreating, leaving glistening patterns in its wake. Naruto stood at the water's edge, eyes closed, feeling the rhythm of the waves against his bare feet. 6 months on this island had taught him to listen differently, not just to the sounds of water and wind, but to the deeper currents of energy flowing through everything. Your stance is improving, observed Hancock from several paces behind him. But your shoulders still betray tension. Naruto opened his eyes, turning to face the Empress of Amazon Lily with a sheepish grin. Old habits. In my world, being too relaxed meant getting a kunai in your back. Hancock approached with that fluid grace that still captivated him after all these months. Her training attire, fitted black leggings and a simple blue top, was far more practical than her royal regalia. Yet somehow enhanced rather than diminished her regal bearing. In this exercise, tension restricts the flow of haki, she reminded him, demonstrating the proper form. Feel the boundary between yourself and the world dissolving. Naruto nodded, mirroring her stance. Over the past months, his training had expanded beyond ninja techniques to include the fundamentals of haki. The concept wasn't entirely foreign. It resembled aspects of chakra control and sage mode, but the application differed in ways that challenged him. Better, Hancock acknowledged as dark ripples of armament haki flowed across his forearms. Now maintain it while moving. They began the familiar dance of their morning sparring session. What had started as formal, distant training exercises had evolved into something more fluid and harmonious. They anticipated each other's movements, challenged each other's techniques, and occasionally surprised each other with innovations. Hancock's leg swept toward his head, infused with haki that would have shattered stone. Naruto blocked with his own haki-reinforced arm, the impact sending vibrations through the beach. He countered with a palm strike that she evaded by mere millimeters. Her body arching backwards with impossible flexibility. You're still relying too heavily on strength, she criticized, though without the imperious tone she used with others. Precision matters more than power. To demonstrate, she flicked 2 fingers toward his chest. The seemingly insignificant attack carried such focused haki that it sent Naruto skidding backward across the sand. He recovered quickly, a determined smile spreading across his face. Like this, he mirrored her technique, channeling haki through his index and middle fingers in a concentrated burst. Hancock deflected the attack with her palm but raised an appreciative eyebrow. "You learn quickly. I had a good teacher," Naruto replied, earning the slightest softening of her expression. "Wah." She passed for a warm smile from the Snake Princess. Their training continued as the sun climbed higher, eventually drawing an audience of young Kuja warriors who watched from a respectful distance. Once feared and resented as an intruder, Naruto had gradually earned a place in the island's routine. Never accepted as one of them, perhaps, but respected as the Empress's chosen training partner and the island's defender against increasingly frequent marine incursions. "Enough for today," Hancock declared when the sun reached its zenith. "The council meets at midday." Naruto nodded, bowing slightly. These small formalities were important in public, maintaining the proper appearance of deference to the Empress while in view of her people. The reality of their relationship had grown considerably more complex than ruler and guest. As Hancock departed toward the palace, Naruto headed in the opposite direction, toward the secluded cove that had become his preferred meditation spot. The Kuja respectfully cleared a path for him, some of the younger warriors offering shy smiles or quick greetings. "Naruto-sama," called a familiar voice. Mari, once his reluctant guide, now served as his official liaison to the Kuja Warrior Council. "Elder Nyan requests your presence after your meditation. She has news about the sea currents. I'll find her afterward," he promised, curious about what the diminutive elder might have discovered. Nyan had been researching the unusual tidal patterns that had emerged in recent months, another symptom of whatever dimensional disturbance had brought Naruto to this world. The secluded cove remained one of the few places on Amazon Lily where Naruto could find true solitude. Sheltered by towering cliffs and accessible only by a narrow path or from the sea, it provided the perfect environment for communion with both Kurama and the natural energy of this world. Settling cross-legged on a smooth stone at the water's edge, Naruto closed his eyes and descended into his mindscape. The space had changed over the months. Once a reflection of Konoha's infrastructure, it now incorporated elements of Amazon Lily, ocean vistas, jungle foliage, and stone architecture reminiscent of the Kuja Palace. Kurama lay curled in this hybrid landscape, his massive tails swaying lazily. The nine tails had grown comfortable in this new environment, his chakra adapting to the world's unique energy. "Still trying to master observation haki?" the fox asked without opening his eyes. "It's the hardest to grasp," Naruto admitted. "Armament haki is like focusing chakra for strength. Conqueror's haki resembles my emotional connection to you. But observation requires a different kind of awareness. Because you're trying to perceive intentions rather than just presence," Kurama observed. "You've always been better at understanding people's hearts than their minds." Naruto smiled at the unexpected insight. His relationship with the Nine Tails had deepened considerably since their arrival in this world. Their shared isolation forging a more equal partnership. "Any luck with the Sea Kings?" Naruto asked, changing the subject. Kurama's massive eyes opened, glowing with interest. "Yes, actually, I made contact with a pod passing near the island last night. Their consciousness is unusual, collective yet individual, ancient beyond human reckoning." The fox's tail swished with excitement, a rare display of enthusiasm. "They recognize something in our combined chakra signature. They called it the voice that commands. The voice of all things," Naruto suggested, recalling Elder Nyan's explanations about this world's mysteries. "Similar but different. They speak of ancient times when certain humans could command them, could speak directly to the sea itself. They believe our presence signals the return of something they call the Divided King." "Divided King? What does that mean?" Kurama shook his massive head. "Their memories are fragmented, preserved through generations of collective consciousness. But they associate this Divided King with the Void Century and something they call the Sundering." The terminology aligned with pieces of history Naruto had learned from Elder Nyan. The mysterious 100-year period erased from this world's historical record, the formation of the world government, the scattered ancient weapons of mass destruction. "There's something else," Kurama added, his tone more serious. The Sea Kings sense instability in the ocean currents, dimensional ripples similar to what brought us here. They're growing more frequent, more intense. Hancock mentioned increased marine activity along the calm belt, Naruto said. They must be monitoring these disturbances. With less benevolent intentions than simple observation, I'm sure, the fox growled. Be careful, Naruto. Your presence here may be catalyzing whatever's happening. Their conversation was interrupted by a distant but powerful sensation, like pressure against Naruto's consciousness. His eyes snapped open in the physical world, meditation forgotten as he leapt to his feet. Another one, he murmured, recognizing the distinct energy signature of a dimensional tremor. Unlike the previous disturbances, this one manifested not as light but as sound, a low, resonant tone that seemed to vibrate through matter itself. The sea before him rippled in concentric patterns not caused by wind or tide. Small objects, pebbles, shells, even droplets of water, rose briefly into the air before settling back into place. Naruto extended his senses, trying to locate the epicenter. The disturbance felt different from the previous ones, more controlled somehow, directed rather than chaotic. Before he could investigate further, urgent footsteps approached along the cliff path. Naruto-sama, called one of the Kuja scouts, breathless from running. A ship approaches, not marines. It bears the mark of Silver's Rayleigh. The name registered immediately. Over the past months, Naruto had learned of the legendary Dark King, former first mate of Galdi. Roger's crew and one of the few outsiders Hancock respected. That such a figure would come to Amazon Lily, especially during a dimensional tremor. Couldn't be coincidence. I'll inform the Empress, Naruto replied, already moving toward the path. Tell the coastal guards to allow approach but maintain watchfulness. The Ku nodded and disappeared back up the trail. Naruto paused briefly, looking back at the now calm sea. The tremor had subsided as quickly as it had appeared, leaving no visible trace, yet he could feel echoes of its passage in the air, like ripples spreading through the fabric of reality itself. What are you trying to tell me? He whispered to the empty cove, before turning to race toward the palace. The Kuja throne room had been transformed into a council chamber, with the island's clan leaders gathered around a circular stone table. Hancock presided from a raised seat, her sisters flanking her as maps and reports were examined. The arrival of Naruto caused a momentary pause in their deliberations. Another tremor, he announced without preamble, having earned the right to speak directly in council. Stronger than previous ones, and a ship approaches, Silver's Rayleigh's. Hancock's expression remained impassive, but Naruto had learned to read the subtle indicators of her interest, the slight narrowing of her eyes, the almost imperceptible straightening of her posture. The timing suggests connection rather than coincidence, she observed. Rayleigh rarely leaves Sabaody without purpose. Elder Nyan, barely visible above the table's edge, nodded in agreement. The Dark King possesses knowledge of the world's mysteries few others can claim. If he comes now, it relates to these disturbances. The tremors align with lunar phases, reported Ran, the Kuja astronomer. Each growing stronger, each lasting longer. If the pattern continues, the next will coincide with the full moon in 14 days. Hancock rose, silencing further discussion with a gesture. Prepare to receive Rayleigh with appropriate respect. He is a friend to the Kuja. She turned to Naruto. You should be present. Your situation may be central to his purpose here. The council dispersed efficiently, the Kuja leaders accustomed to their Empress's decisive manner. Soon only Hancock, her sisters, Elder Nyan, and Naruto remained in the vast chamber. You sensed the tremor before our instruments detected it, Sandersonia observed, addressing Naruto. Your sensitivity to these disturbances grows. Naruto nodded. Kurama thinks our chakra resonates with whatever's causing them. He's also made contact with Sea Kings. They speak of something called the Divided King, and the Sundering. Elder Nyan's ancient eyes widened. The beast within you can communicate with Sea Kings. This is unprecedented. The Nine Tails isn't just a beast, Naruto corrected gently. Kurama is a sentient being with knowledge spanning centuries. In my world, he witnessed the founding of hidden villages, the rise and fall of nations. And in this world, he may be witnessing something equally momentous, Hancock concluded. Her gaze lingered on Naruto, carrying unspoken significance. We will hear what Rayleigh has to say before deciding our course. The arrival of Silver's Rayleigh was marked by none of the sea ceremony typical of important visitors to Amazon Lily. The legendary pirate came ashore in a simple boat, accompanied only by a giant lion-like creature he introduced as Richie, borrowed from an acquaintance. Despite his advanced age, Rayleigh moved with the easy confidence of a master swordsman, his silver hair and beard framing sharp eyes that missed nothing. Hancock, he greeted the Empress with familiar respect rather than subservience. You're looking well. Island life continues to agree with you. Rayleigh, she acknowledged with a nod that contained more warmth than she showed most visitors. Your arrival coincides with matters of interest. The Dark King's gaze shifted to Naruto, studying him with unnerving intensity. So this is your dimensional traveler. Shaki mentioned rumors of a golden-haired outsider with unusual powers. The Marines are quite determined to acquire him. The Marines can continue their futile pursuit, Hancock replied dismissively. Why have you come, Rayleigh? Not for simple curiosity, I think. The old pirate's expression grew serious. No, though curiosity played its part. He reached into his coat, extracting a rolled parchment. This arrived at Shaki's bar 2 weeks ago. Delivered by a messenger who vanished before he could be questioned. He unrolled the document on a nearby table, revealing intricate diagrams annotated in an unfamiliar script. Central to the design was a spiral pattern remarkably similar to the seal on Naruto's abdomen. I recognized elements of ancient poneglyph symbology, Rayleigh explained. But the configuratio N is unlike anything recorded in this world's history. It appears to be a map of interdimensional currents, showing points where the barriers between realities grow thin. Naruto leaned closer, recognizing components that resembled Uzumaki sealing techniques. Some of these symbols exist in my world, he confirmed. They're used in space-time ninjutsu. The messenger left a verbal message as well, Rayleigh continued. When the divided voices reunite, the sundered worlds will tremble. He said it was meant specifically for the Golden Visitor and his 9 voices. Naruto exchanged glances with Hancock, both recognizing the reference to Kurama and the terminology the Sea Kings had used. There's more, Rayleigh added. Reports from across the Grand Line describe phenomena similar to what you're experiencing here. Momentary gravitational fluctuations, spontaneous weather changes, electronic equipment failing for precisely 9 minutes and 9 seconds. 9 again, Naruto murmured. The number keeps appearing. Most concerning, Rayleigh said, his voice dropping, are the disappearances. 17 ships have vanished in the past month alone, not sunk, not attacked, simply gone while traversing otherwise safe waters. And in each case, witnesses report seeing a golden light before the disappearance. Elder Nyan's wrinkled hand traced the spiral pattern on the parchment. These currents converge at specific locations. One is near Amazon Lily, but the primary nexus appears to be Sabaody Archipelago, Rayleigh confirmed. Where the map was delivered. I believe someone, or so, Mething, is trying to establish communication across dimensions. And they believe your friend here is key to the process. Hancock's expression hardened as she contemplated the implications. You're suggesting Naruto should leave Amazon Lily and travel to Sabaody. I'm suggesting that answers won't come to you, Rayleigh replied diplomatically. And time may be limited. These dimensional disruptions are increasing exponentially. Whatever is happening won't wait for convenient timing. A heavy silence fell over the chamber as the Kuju leaders absorbed this information. For Naruto, the decision seemed clear. If answers existed that might explain his presence in this world and potentially offer a way home, he needed to pursue them. Yet he was acutely aware of the political complexities involved. His presence on Amazon Lily had become both asset and liability for Hancock's rule. I should go, he said finally. But I won't leave Amazon Lily vulnerable. The Marines have increased patrols specifically because of me. The Kuja have defended this island since before the formation of the world government, Hancock replied, a hint of pride coloring her tone. We will continue to do so regardless of your presence. Their eyes met across the table, an entire conversation passing without words. Over months of training together, sharing meals, and navigating the complex politics of this world, they had developed an understanding that transcended verbal communication. I'll accompany him, Hancock announced, surprising everyone present. Sabaody falls within my territory as a warlord. My presence will deter most interference. Sister, protested Marigold, you haven't left Amazon Lily in nearly a year. The world government will question such a journey. Let them question, Hancock replied with imperious dismissal. I am not accountable to them for my movements. Besides, these dimensional disturbances threaten my domain. Investigating their source is my responsibility. Rayleigh's lips quirked in a knowing smile that he quickly suppressed. A wise decision. 2 individuals of your caliber will attract less attention than a larger group. I can arrange discreet transportation from the edge of the comm belt. The details were settled efficiently. They would depart at dawn, taking one of the smaller Kuja vessels to rendezvous with Rayleigh's contact at the boundary waters. From there, they would travel inconspicuously to Sabaody, avoiding marine attention where possible. As the meeting concluded and preparations began, Naruto found himself alone with Hancock on the palace balcony overlooking the bay. The setting sun painted the water in shades of amber and gold, creating an atmosphere of unusual tranquility. You didn't have to volunteer, Naruto said quietly. I could have gone with Rayleigh. You speak as if you had a choice in the matter, Hancock replied, though without her customary haughtiness. Amazon Lily's interests must be represented in any investigation involving these dimensional phenomena. As Empress, that responsibility falls to me. Naruto smiled slightly, recognizing the practical justification masking what might be a more personal motivation. Of course, just diplomatic considerations. Precisely. Her gaze remained fixed on the horizon, but a subtle curve touched her lips. Though I admit some curiosity about the outside world's reaction to your abilities. You've trained exclusively with the Kuja these past months. Different opponents may reveal gaps in your technique. Always the teacher, Naruto observed with affectionate respect. Always, she agreed, finally turning to face him. The dying sunlight softened her features, highlighting the woman beneath the Empress. Pack lightly and rest well. Once we leave Amazon Lily's protection, we enter a world where my title offers limited security and your existence represents immense value to powerful interests. Naruto nodded, understanding the seriousness of their undertaking. I won't let you regret bringing me. See that you don't, she replied, but her tone carried none of the coldness she directed at others. In the private language that had developed between them, it was almost tender. As twilight deepened into night, Naruto returned to his quarters to prepare for their journey. The room assigned to him months ago had gradually accumulated personal touches, scrolls containing training notes. A hand-carved wooden spiral reminiscent of Konoha's symbol, pressed flowers from Amazon Lily's unique flora. Looking at these modest possessions, he realized how much this place had become a home of sorts. Getting sentimental, Kurama's voice rumbled in his mind. Just reflecting, Naruto replied silently. 6 months ago, I was desperate to find a way back to Konoha. Now you have connections here too, the fox finished for him. Particularly to a certain imperious empress with a complicated past. Naruto didn't deny it. His relationship with Hancock defied simple categorization. Teacher and student, allies in battle, leaders with shared responsibilities. These roles created a foundation for something deeper that neither had acknowledged directly. What do you think about Rayleigh's information? He asked, changing the subject. The 9 voices, the sundered worlds, it can't be coincidence. No coincidence, Kurama agreed. The number 9 has significance in both our world and this one. 9-tailed beasts, 9 red scabbards, 9 shadows, the pattern repeats across dimensional boundaries. Something fundamental connects these realities. And I'm caught in the middle of it. Naruto mused, packing the few essentials he would need for their journey. Story of my life. At least the company has improved, Kurama observed with vulpine amusement. The Snake Princess is far more interesting than those academy teachers who used to chase you after pranks. Naruto laughed softly, grateful for the fox's attempt at lightening his mood. Whatever awaited them beyond Amazon Lily, at least he wouldn't face it alone. Dawn arrived with mist rolling across the harbor, shrouding the small vessel prepared for their departure. Designed for speed rather than cargo, the ship carried minimal crew, just enough experienced Kuja sailors to navigate the treacherous waters of the calm belt. Hancock arrived dressed not in her elaborate Empress attire but in Practical traveling clothes that still managed to accentuate her beauty while allowing freedom of movement. The mist provides good cover, she observed as they boarded. We should reach the rendezvous point by midday. The farewell was brief and efficient. Sandersonia and Marigold would govern in their sister's absence, with Elder Nyan providing counsel. The Kuja warriors lined the dock, offering salutes rather than emotional goodbyes. Their culture valued strength and purpose over sentimentality. As Amazon Lily faded into the mist behind them, Naruto felt a curious mixture of anticipation and apprehension. For 6 months, the island had represented safety, a sanctuary where he could adapt to this world's rules and powers without constant danger. Now they ventured into territories controlled by the world government, where both his and Hancock's presence would attract unwanted attention. Second thoughts, Hancock asked, joining him at the rail. Just strategizing, Naruto replied. In my world, I was recognizable. The orange outfit, the whisker marks, the loud personality. Here, I'm still figuring out how to blend in. Blending in has never been your strength, she observed with dry amusement. Nor is it mine. Sometimes visibility serves as its own protection. Few would directly challenge known powers. Unless they're Marines with orders directly from headquarters, Naruto countered. True. Her expression grew more serious. Which is why we travel discreetly despite not disguising our identities. Speed and selective engagement rather than stealth and deception. The journey, why through the calm belt proceeded uneventfully, which was unusual in itself. The massive sea kings that normally infested these waters seemed conspicuously absent. They're avoiding something, the ship's captain noted with concern. In 20 years sailing these waters, I've never seen them so scarce. They sense the dimensional disturbances, Naruto explained, recalling Kurama's communications with the creatures. They're gathering in deeper waters, awaiting what they call the reunion. By midday, they reached the boundary where the calm belt met the tumultuous waters of the Grand Line. A nondescript fishing vessel awaited them, crewed by weathered individuals who showed no surprise at receiving the pirate Empress and her unusual companion. Shaki sends her regards, announced the captain. A middle-aged woman with faded tattoos covering her arms. We'll have you at Sabaody by nightfall if the currents hold. The transfer between vessels was executed quickly. As the Kuja ship turned back toward Amazon Lily, Naruto felt the symbolic weight of the moment, his first true separation from the island that had given him refuge. The fishing vessel moved with surprising speed once beyond the calm belt's stillness. Its unremarkable appearance belied modifications that clearly prioritized performance over authenticity. The crew, while maintaining the pretense of simple fishermen, laid the disciplined coordination of experienced sailors accustomed to evading authorities. Rayleigh's network runs deeper than I realized, Naruto observed quietly to Hancock as they stood at the stern, watching their wake cut through the increasingly choppy waters. The Dark King's connections span generations, she replied. Former pirates, retired Marines, merchants, craftspeople, many owe high favors or respect his neutrality in world affairs. The journey provided rare uninterrupted time together away from the formal structures of Amazon Lily. As they navigated through changing weather and sea conditions, their conversation drifted to more personal territories, childhood memories, formative experiences, the paths that had shaped them into the people they'd become. You never speak of your time before becoming Empress, Naruto noted during a quiet moment as they shared a simple meal of fish and fruit in the ship's small cabin. Hancock's expression closed briefly before she made a visible decision to answer. Because those memories hold no power worth acknowledging. I understand painful pasts, Naruto said gently. Sometimes sharing them lessens their weight. She studied him for a long moment, then set aside her barely touched food. My sisters and I were taken from Amazon Lily as children by slave traders. We were purchased by celestial dragons, the self-proclaimed world. Nobles who believe themselves gods among men. The clinical detachment in her voice didn't mask the deep scars beneath. For 4 years, we existed as property. Decorations. Entertainment. We were NDED with the mark of the celestial dragons on our backs, a symbol of ownership that could never be removed. Naruto remained silent, recognizing the rare trust being extended in this disclosure. Fisher Tiger, a fishman revolutionary, raided Mariajoy and freed all slaves, including us. We returned to Amazon Lily, hiding our marks of shame beneath stories of defeating Gorgons. I ate the love fruit, gained power, and became Empress, ensuring no one could ever control me again. She looked directly at him, her eyes harder than he'd ever seen them. So no, I do not speak of that time. It belongs to a different person. One who no longer exists. Thank you for telling me, Naruto said simply. Your strength isn't just in your powers or your position. It's in surviving that and still being capable of compassion. Compassion. She seemed genuinely surprised by his assessment. I've seen how you protect your people, how you teach rather than command, how you create a world where they can live with dignity. That requires compassion, even if you don't call it that. Hancock looked away, uncomfortable with his perception. You attribute noble motivations where simple pragmatism exists. Maybe, Naruto conceded with a small smile. Or maybe you don't give yourself enough credit for the good you do. The conversation shifted to lighter topics, but something had changed between them. A deeper understanding established through vulnerability shared and respected. As evening approached, the distinctive silhouette of Sabaody archipelago appeared on the horizon, massive mangrove trees rising from the ocean. Their roots forming the foundation of what appeared to be islands but were actually interconnected regions of the same landmass. Soap-like bubbles floated upward from the trees, creating an otherworldly atmosphere. We'll approach from Grove 77, the captain informed them. Minimal marine presence, controlled by independent merchants. Rayleigh will meet you at Shaki's bar in Grove 13 after dark. Hancock nodded, already adjusting her demeanor from traveling companion to warlord of the sea, her posture straightening, expression cooling into the imperious mask she presented to the world. Naruto similarly centered himself, recalling the hostile environment they were entering. The fishing vessel docked at an inconspicuous pier, where no officials requested identification or documentation, evidence of Rayleigh's influence even in their arrival arrangements. As they disembarked, the captain offered only a brief nod before immediately preparing to depart, maintaining the appearance of a regular fishing expedition. Sabaody's environment struck Naruto immediately. The strange springy texture of the ground formed from mangrove roots, the constant soap bubbles rising from the soil. The mixture of technological advancement and poverty visible even from their arrival point. Unlike Amazon Lily's natural harmony, Sabaody represented manipulation of nature for human convenience. With clear divisions between wealthy districts and impoverished areas. Stay close, Hancock instructed as they moved through twilight shadows toward more populated areas. Sabaody operates under superficial world government authority. But lawlessness prevails in many groves. Kidnapping, slavery, and trafficking occur despite official prohibitions. They traveled efficiently, avoiding main thoroughfares. Even in simpler clothing with her hair partially covered, Hancock's beauty attracted attention, which she deflected with cold glares that sent onlookers scrambling away. Naruto maintained a vigilant presence beside her. His senses extended to detect potential threats. The transition between groves revealed Sabaody's social stratification, from rough areas where bounty hunters gathered upscale shopping districts where the wealthy displayed their status through extravagant purchases. Nowhere did Naruto see the community cohesion that characterized Amazon Lily, only transactions and temporary alliances based on mutual benefit. This place feels fractured, he observed quietly. It reflects the world beyond, Hancock replied. Sabaody is where realities collide. Pirates and marines, slaves and masters. Poverty and obscene wealth. The world government maintains this inequality by design, not incompetence. They reached Grove 13 as full darkness descended. Shaki's rip-off bar occupied a modest building distinguished only by a simple sign and the absence of the rowdiness that characterized neighboring establishments. Inside, the atmosphere was deliberately unremarkable, a few patrons nursing expensive drinks. Subdued lighting, and a dark-haired woman polishing glasses behind the counter. The pirate Empress graces my humble establishment, the woman, presumably Shaki, greeted them with a knowing smile. And her interesting companion. Rayleigh mentioned you'd be arriving tonight. Shaki, Hancock acknowledged with a respectful nod. Your hospitality is appreciated. He's waiting upstairs, Shaki replied, gesturing toward a back staircase. I'll ensure you're not disturbed. The upper floor contained private rooms for discussions that required discretion. Rayleigh awaited them in the largest of these, surrounded by maps, documents, and what appeared to be pieces of scientific equipment. "You made good time," he observed, rising to greet them. "Any complications during the journey?" "None," Hancock replied, though the Sea King's absence from the calm belt is concerning. A pattern repeated across multiple regions, Rayleigh confirmed, indicating a map, where red markers indicated unusual marine behavior. "They're converging around these locations, all sites of reported dimensional anomalies." Naruto approached the document spread across the table, recognizing complex calculations alongside diagrams that resembled advanced ceiling arrays. "You've been researching this extensively." With help from unexpected quarters, Rayleigh acknowledged. 3 days ago, a man arrived claiming to be a dimensional refugee, like yourself. His knowledge of these phenomena proved considerable. Another traveler. Naruto's pulse quickened. "From my world." He didn't specify, and he disappeared before I could question him thoroughly. "But he left these." Rayleigh indicated a stack of papers covered in technical notations. "And a message. The fox with Nay tails must find the monkey with the straw hat at the place where the world first divided." Naruto exchanged glances with Hancock. "Cryptic, but significant," she noted. "The monkey with the straw hat clearly refers to Monkey D. Luffy." Naruto had heard the name during his time on Amazon Lily, a young pirate who had somehow earned Hancock's respect and affection during a brief visit to the island. "The timing correlates with increased marine activity around Laugh Tale," Rayleigh continued, indicating the final island of the Grand Line. "They've established a blockade-preventing approach, claiming environmental hazards. A convenient excuse to hide whatever they're investigating," Hancock observed. Their discussion continued deep into the night, connecting fragments of information into a pattern suggesting deliberate manipulation of dimensional boundaries. Rayleigh's extensive knowledge of world history provided context for anomalies that might otherwise seem random. Void Century ended with what historical fragments call the Great Division, he explained. References exist to worlds being sundered, or separated, to prevent catastrophe. The ancient weapons, Pluton, Poseidon, Uranus, may have been tools in this process rather than simply instruments of destruction. "And now the division is weakening," Naruto concluded. "That's why I was pulled through during my battle with Kagaya. The dimensional boundaries were already compromised." "Precisely," Rayleigh confirmed. "But the question remains, is this a natural process, or is someone deliberately attempting to reunite what was separated?" Before they could pursue this line of reasoning further, Shaki appeared at the door, her normally composed expression tense. "Marine vessels approaching from Grove 1. Full tactical units with a Vice Admiral leading." Rayleigh moved immediately to the window, confirming her report. 6 ships, combat ready. They're mobilizing for more than a routine patrol." He turned to Hancock. "Your presence here has been reported, it seems." "Impossible," she replied. "We were completely discreet in our arrival." "Unless they were already watching Sabaody for dimensional activity," Naruto suggested. "And detected something when we arrived." As if confirming his theory, a subtle vibration passed through the building, the now familiar sensation of dimensional energy fluctuating. Naruto felt Kurama stir within him, the 9 tails suddenly alert. "They're not just coming for you," the fox growled. "They're tracking these dimensional pulses. Your chakra amplifies them, making them detectable." "We need to move," Naruto announced. "My presence is like a beacon to whatever equipment they're using to monitor these disturbances." Shaki nodded toward a back exit. "The underground route will take you to Grove 41. I'll handle any Marines who come asking questions." "They won't be asking," Rayleigh cautioned. "This operation has the hallmarks of CP0 involvement, the LD government's highest intelligence agency. They'll take what they want by force if necessary. Then I'll give them appropriate resistance," Shaki replied with a dangerous smile that suggested her unassuming appearance concealed significant combat capability. Hancock's expression hardened into the cold mask of the pirate Empress. "As a warlord of the sea, my movements are my own affair. The Ines overstep their authority with this pursuit. Diplomatic protests won't matter if they take you into custody," Rayleigh countered. "The world government has shown increasing willingness to sacrifice even warlords when greater interests are at stake." The decision was made quickly. they would use the underground passage to reach a different grove, then seek alternative transportation away from Sabaody. Rayleigh would remain to cover their departure, his legendary status providing some deterrent against immediate marine action. Head toward Water 7, he advised as they prepared to leave. I have contacts there who understand discretion. And Naruto, he handed over a small package wrapped in oilcloth. The calculations your dimensional colleague left. They may prove useful in understanding what's happening to you. The underground passage proved to be a narrow tunnel supported by mangrove roots, illuminated by bioluminescent fungi that cast an eerie blue glow over the rough-hewn walls. Naruto and Hancock moved swiftly, their footsteps muffled by the spongy floor. The Marines wouldn't risk confronting you directly without significant cause, Naruto observed as they navigated the twisting path. Something's changed in their assessment of the situation. Or in their orders, Hancock agreed. The 5 elders may have decided these dimensional matters outweigh the political cost of antagonizing a warlord. They emerged in Grove 41 through a concealed exit behind an abandoned warehouse. The area appeared industrial, dedicated to shipbuilding and repairs, with fewer residents to notice their arrival. Naruto immediately sensed they weren't alone. Above us, he whispered, enhancing his senses with a touch of sage mode. Hancock nodded imperceptibly, having detected the presence through her own observation haki. Without breaking stride, they continued toward the docks, maintaining the appearance of unaware travelers while preparing for confrontation. The attack came with impressive coordination. 4 figures dropping from different directions, moving with the unnatural synchronization that characterized CP-0 agents. Their white masks and immaculate clothing identified TH.M as the world government's elite enforcers, answerable only to the highest authorities. Boa Hancock, announced the apparent leader, a tall figure whose mask featured gold accents. Your presence I.S. requested at Marine headquarters regarding violation of warlord protocols. I recognize no such protocols limiting my movement, Hancock replied with imperial disdain. Return to your masters and inform them the pirate Empress does not respond to requests delivered by masked subordinates. And Naruto Uzumaki, the agent continued as if she hadn't spoken. You are classified as a dimensional security risk requiring immediate containment. Surrender peacefully to prevent unnecessary damage to this facility. Naruto's response was a surge of chakra that manifested as golden energy around his body. I've seen what your government does to people it contains. All pass. The CP-0 agents moved with blinding speed, employing the advanced 6 powers techniques that made them formidable even against devil fruit users. Their bodies hardened with armament haki as they launched coordinated strikes designed to separate Naruto and Hancock. Hancock's beauty transformed into lethal grace as she engaged 2 agents simultaneously. Her kicks carried the perfect precision he'd observed during their training sessions, but now enhanced with genuine killing intent. When one agent attempted to immobilize her arms, she executed a sinuous evasion that seemed to defy anatomy, before counter-attacking with a haki-infused strike that shattered her opponent's reinforced defense. Mero mellow, she called out, her fingers forming a heart shape from which pink energy emerged. The agent who met her gaze instantly transformed to stone, his body freezing mid-attack. Naruto faced the remaining 2 ents with the tactical awareness developed through countless battles. His shadow clone jutsu created multiple targets, forcing them to divide their attention. When one agent used a technique that seemed to teleport behind him, Naruto was already moving, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to plant a Rasengan directly into the agent's chest. Impossible, gasped the agent as the spiraling chakra sent him crashing through the warehouse wall. You anticipated shave at maximum speed. I've fought faster, Naruto replied, thinking of his battles with Madara and Kagaya. The final agent proved more adaptable, analyzing Naruto's techniques and adjusting his approach accordingly. When shadow clones proved ineffective, he switched to pure speed and power, attempting to overwhelm Naruto with Konsaku. Taive attacks that left no opening for counteroffensive. Naruto felt his chakra responding differently in this prolonged combat, flowing more freely than during his training sessions, as if the Dimensio null energy permeating Sabaody enhanced rather than restricted his abilities. Entering an imperfect sage mode, he channeled natural energy into a defensive barrier that repelled the agent's next attack. Sage Art. Frog Strike. The technique, adapted from his training with the toads, sent a concentrated burst of natural energy through his palm into the agent's body. The impact disrupted the agent's hockey defenses, leaving him vulnerable to a follow-up attack that rendered him unconscious. As quickly as it had begun, the confrontation ended. 4 elite CP-0 agents lay defeated, one turned to stone, others unconscious or disabled. Hancock surveyed the damage with cool assessment. CP-0's involvement confirms the world government's desperation, she observed. They rarely deploy such assets without absolute necessity. They'll have backup protocols, Naruto warned, already sensing approaching presences. This was just the advance team. A resonant voice carried across the shipyard. Impressive performance. Though expected given your reputations. The speaker emerged from between 2 buildings, a tall man with a neatly trimmed beard and traditional robes. A white coat bearing marine insignia draped his shoulders, and a cane tapped gently against the ground as he approached. Though his eyes appeared closed, Naruto immediately sensed the tremendous power contained within his calm demeanor. Admiral Fujitora. Hancock identified him, her posture tensing slightly. The world government sends its blind enforcer for a simple retrieval. There is nothing simple about dimensional breaches, Empress Hancock. Fujitora replied courteously. Or about the young man who catalyzes them merely by existing in our world. Naruto studied the Admiral carefully, recognizing a different caliber of opponent from the CP-0 agents. You're not here to arrest us. Fujitora's lips curved in a slight smile. Perceptive. No, my orders are more nuanced than simple apprehension. I am here to understand, to assess whether your presence represents threat or opportunity. For whom? Hancock demanded. The world government. The celestial dragons, or justice itself, Admiral. The question seemed to resonate with Fujitora, whose expression turned contemplative. An excellent distinction, Empress. The answer depends on what we discovered during our conversation. Before the exchange could continue, the ground beneath them trembled. Unlike the controlled power of Fujitora's gravity manipulation, this disturbance emanated from deeper sources, the mangrove roots themselves vibrating with dimensional energy. Another tremor, Naruto identified. But this one felt different, more intense, more focused. The air around them seemed to waver, reality itself becoming momentarily permeable. Fujitora raised his cane slightly. They grow stronger in your presence, Naruto Uzumaki. This confirms our scientists' theories about your function as a catalyst. The tremor intensified, creating visible distortions in air, like heat shimmer but more structured, forming patterns that resembled the spiral seal on Naruto's abdomen. Within his mindscape, Kurama roared in recognition. It's opening. The 9 tails warned. A temporary window between worlds. As if manifesting Kurama's warning, the distortion coalesced into a translucent barrier through which another reality became visible. Naruto stared in shock at the unmistakable silhouette of Konoha's Hokage monument, the familiar faces carved into the mountainside illuminated by setting sunlight. Home, he whispered, reaching involuntarily toward the image. Figures moved within the vision, recognizable despite the distortion. Kakashi, wearing the Hokage's hat and robes. Sakura, her medical expertise evidently being applied to some complex apparatus. Shikamaru, analyzing patterns on what appeared to be a massive ceiling array. They couldn't see him, couldn't hear him. This was observation only, not communication. But the sight of his friends, his village, continuing in his absence struck Naruto with unexpected emotional force. Hancock watched the display with unreadable expression, though something in her eyes betrayed understanding of what this vision meant to him. Fujitora remained motionless, his unseeing eyes somehow still registering the dimensional phenomenon. Fascinating, the Admiral murmured. A spontaneous connection between corresponding locations in separate realities. Precisely what our researchers predicted but failed to reproduce artificially. The vision lasted less than a minute before collapsing inward, the dimensional window closing as abruptly as it had appeared. Naruto felt its passing like a physical pain, the brief connection to his home world severed once more. Fujitora's head tilted slightly, as if listening to distant sounds. Marine reinforcements approach from multiple directions. Our conversation must be abbreviated. There is nothing to discuss, Hancock declared coldly. Naruto remains under my protection as Empress of Amazon Lily and Warlord of the Sea. Any attempt to separate us will be considered an act of war against the Kuja. The Admiral sighed, seeming genuinely regretful. Your position is clear, Empress. However, my duty compels me to act according to my orders. The world government believes these dimensional disruptions threaten global stability. He raised his cane, and the air round them grew heavy with gravitational pressure. I must insist on Naruto Uzumaki's accompaniment to Marine Headquarters for consultation with our scientific division. Naruto stepped forward, golden chakra flaring around him. With respect, Admiral, I decline your invitation. Then regrettably, I must compel your cooperation. What followed was unlike any battle Naruto had experienced in this world. Fujitora's mastery of gravity created conditions that challenged even his enhanced abilities, increased pressure making movement difficult, localized gravitational fields redirecting attacks, Cheers summoned from above to crater the shipyard. Hancock proved why she held the title of warlord, her combination of devil fruit powers and advanced haki allowing her to counter Fujitora's techniques with surprising effectiveness. When gravitational force threatened to immobilize her, she transformed affected areas to stone, creating temporary shields against his power. Naruto deployed every tech, HNIQUE in his adapted arsenal, shadow clones to divide Fujitora's attention, Rasengan variants to counter gravitational pressure, even limited six-path sage mode to generate truth-seeking orbs that nullify some of the Admiral's attacks. Your abilities are remarkable, Fujitora acknowledged during a momentary pause in their exchange. Unlike any devil fruit or haki manifestation recorded in our world. That's because they're not from your world, Naruto replied, breathing heavily but maintaining his stance. Just as I'm not one of your subjects to command. The battle resumed with increased intensity. Their movements destroying large sections of the deserted shipyard. Fujitora's precision prevented civilian casualties, his awareness extending far beyond normal perception despite his blindness. When Naruto attempted to use environmental features as weapons, the Admiral countered with perfect anticipation. He's reading our intentions through advanced observation haki, Hancock realized, communicating the insight to Naruto through their established battle coordination. Naruto nodded, modifying his approach. Rather than complex strategies, he shifted to pure instinct, the unpredictable fighting style that had confounded even the most analytical opponents in his world. When Fujitora adjusted to counter-calculated attacks, Naruto's improvised responses created openings in his defense. The tide began to turn when Naruto fully synchronized with Kurama, entering complete Biju mode. The golden chakra avatar materialized around him, towering above the shipyard. Fujitora's EXPR. Eshin registered genuine surprise at this transformation. Remarkable, the Admiral murmured. A power comparable to the ancient weapons themselves. Before Naruto could press his advantage, the dimensional energy surged again, stronger than before, responding to his increased chakra output. The ground beneath them shuddered, mangrove roots cracking under the pressure of intersecting realities. The entire grove is destabilizing, Hancock warned, her observation haki detecting structural failures throughout the area. Your battle is endangering thousands, Admiral. Fujitora perceived the truth in her statement, his gravity senses confirming the spreading damage. With visible reluctance, he lowered his cane, releasing the gravitational pressure. This conflict accomplishes nothing but destruction, he acknowledged. And contrary to common belief, I do not serve destruction in the name of absolute justice. The momentary ceasefire might have led to resolution had another participant not chosen that moment to intervene. A massive explosion rocked the adjacent grove, followed by the distinctive sound of battleship cannons firing in sequence. Fleet Admiral's orders, announced a voice amplified through Den Den Mushi. Capture the dimensional anomaly and the warlord by any means necessary. All units engage. Fujitora's expression darkened. Sakazuki overreaches. These are civilian areas. The situation deteriorated rapidly as Marine forces converged on their position with overwhelming numbers. Ordinary Marines posed little threat individually, but their coordinated attacks under Vice Admiral leadership created genuine danger, particularly with Naruto and Hancock already fatigued from battling Fujitora. We need extraction, Hancock stated, her practical assessment cutting through battle chaos. Fighting the entire Marine contingent serves no purpose. Naruto nodded, creating shadow clones to provide diversionary targets while they sought escape routes. The ongoing dimensional disturbances complicated matters. creating unpredictable environmental effects throughout the grove, gravity fluctuations, temporal inconsistencies, spontaneous weather phenomena. When a Marine B battleship positioned itself to blockade the most viable escape path, their situation appeared increasingly desperate. Then, without warning, a massive gust of wind swept across the water, creating a all of air pressure that forced the battleship aside. "Need a lift," called a voice from above. A revolutionary ship appeared, hovering above the battlefield using technology Naruto didn't recognize. A rope ladder descended, dangling within reach if they could break through the marine perimeter. "Dragon's people," Hancock identified, referring to the leader of the Revolutionary Army. "An unexpected alliance. Friends of Luffy are friends of ours," replied a blond man with a burned scar covering one eye, leaping down to assist their escape. "I'm Sabo, Revolutionary Army Chief of Staff. We've been monitoring these dimensional events too." With Sabo's assistance, his control of fire providing excellent coverage, they fought their way to the extraction point. The revolutionary demonstrated power comparable to top-tier fighters. His flame fruit abilities creating openings through marine formations. "Dragon wants to speak with you both," Sabo explained as they climbed aboard the revolutionary vessel. "These dimensional disturbances align with prophecies our researchers have uncovered, something about the divided rejoining and worlds in collision." As their ship rose above the battlefield, Fujitora stood watching their departure, making no move to prevent it. His expression suggested internal conflict, a man caught between duty and personal justice. "The Admiral let us go, Nar," Yuto observed as Sabaody diminished below them. "Fujitora plays a longer game than most Marines," Sabo explained. "He's been questioning world government mandates since assuming his position." The revolutionary ship accelerated away from Sabaody, its unusual propulsion system allowing aerial travel at speeds that outpaced pursuing marine vessels. From this elevation, the full scale of the archipelago became visible, interconnected groves forming a massive circular pattern around a central point. "It looks like a giant ceiling array," Naruto realized, recognizing the pattern from his Uzumaki heritage. "The entire archipelago is constructed in the form of a dimensional stabilizer." Hancock studied the formation with new understanding. "The bubble-producing trees aren't natural, they're cultivated in this specific arrangement." "By whom?" Naruto wondered. "And for what purpose?" "Questions for Dragon," Sabo replied cryptically. "He's been researching these patterns for years, long before your arrival triggered increased activity." As they left Sabaody behind, Naruto found himself beside Hancock at the ship's rail, both processing the revelations and confrontations of the past hours. The brief glimpse of Konoha had reopened questions about his place in this world versus his home. "You saw your village," Hancock observed quietly. "Your people," Naruto nodded, emotions still raw from the experience. "They're looking for me, trying to find a way to bring me back. As expected of those who value you," she replied, her tone carefully neutral. "When another opportunity presents itself, you will naturally return to them." The unspoken question hung between them. Would he choose to return if given the chance? 6 months ago, the answer would have been immediate and certain. Now, complexity colored his response. "I don't know what I'll choose," he admitted, addressing the subtext directly. "This world has become more than just a temporary refuge." Their eyes met, mutual understanding passing between them without requiring explicit acknowledgement of what, or who, had created his attachment to this reality. "Such decisions need not be made until necessary," Hancock replied, though something in her expression softened. "For now, we pursue answers about these dimensional disruptions. The rest will follow in its time." Naruto smiled slightly, recognizing her practical approach to emotional matters. "As always, the Empress shows wisdom. The Empress shows pragmatism," she corrected, but returned his smile with a subtle one of her own. "Wisdom suggests not borrowing tomorrow's troubles when today's remain unresolved." The revolutionary ship continued its journey through darkening skies, bearing them toward uncertain destinations and revelations. Below, the ocean churned with unusual patterns, sea kings moving in coordinated formations unlike their normal behavior, responding to forces beyond human perception. Within Naruto's mindscape, Kurama observed these developments. with growing certainty that their presence in this world was not accidental, that forces beyond dimensional boundaries had conspired to bring specific powers together at this critical juncture in both worlds' histories. The boundaries continue to thin, the Nine Tails noted. Whatever separated these realities is failing by design, not chance. Meaning someone wants the worlds to reconnect, Naruto concluded silently. Or someone never wanted them separated in the first place, Kurama suggested. Perhaps we're witnessing the correction of an ancient mistake rather than the creation of a new problem. This perspective offered a framework for understanding the accelerating phenomena they'd experienced, not random dimensional tears, but systematic dismantling of artificial barriers established during what this world called the Void Century. As night fully claimed the sky, Hancock retired to quarters provided by their revolutionary hosts. Naruto remained on deck, watching stars emerge above an ocean that increasingly felt like home rather than alien territory. His thoughts drifted between worlds, between the village that had shaped his identity and the new connections forging his future. Sabo joined him at the rail, offering a steaming cup of tea. Thinking about your worlds, Naruto corrected, accepting the drink. Plural, I seem to have a foot in each now. Dragon Bilai, vase that's precisely why you're important, Sabo revealed. A bridge between realities that were never meant to be divided. What does he know about it? Tomorrow you'll see, Sabo promised. We're taking you to our research facility on Baltigo. Dragon has collected artifacts and texts regarding dimensional phenomena for decades, long before the world government acknowledged their existence. Why would he focus on something so obscure? Sabo's expression grew more serious. Because Dragon believes the world government's foundation is built on the greatest lie in history, that separating our world from others was necessary to prevent catastrophe, when in reality, it served only to consolidate power in the hands of the 20 kings who formed the world government. The implications of this theory aligned with fragments Naruto had pieced together from Elder Nyan's teachings, Rayleigh's research, and Kurama's communications with Sea Kings. If true, it suggested the dimensional disturbances weren't a threat to be contained but a natural correction to an ancient injustice. Get some rest, Sabo advised. Tomorrow brings revelations that may reshape your understanding of both your worlds. Left alone with these thoughts, Naruto extended his senses, finding Hancock's unique energy signature several decks below. Though physically separated, he felt a connection that transcended proximity. A resonance between their experiences and aspirations that had developed unexpectedly during their months together. You care for the Snake Princess, Kurama observed without judgment. Is that surprising? Naruto replied silently. She embodies qualities you've always respected. Strength without cruelty, leadership through example rather than fear, protection of the vulnerable despite personal cost. She would disagree with that assessment, Naruto noted with amusement, recalling Hancock's insistence that her actions stemmed from pragmatism rather than compassion. Perhaps, but her perception doesn't negate the truth of her character, Kurama replied. Just as your insistence that you were merely an ordinary ninja never negated your extraordinary nature. The comparison gave Naruto pause. Throughout his life, he had rejected special treatment or destiny-based explanations for his achievements, preferring to attribute his growth to hard work and determination rather than inherited greatness. Hancock similarly rejected interpretations of her actions that suggested deeper emotional motivations. We both prefer earning our place rather than having it granted by circumstance, he realized. A commendable preference, Kurama agreed. And one that makes your growing connection genuine rather than convenient. The conversation with his tailed companion provided clarity as Naruto contemplated the choices ahead. Whatever revelations tomorrow brought, whatever dimensional possibilities emerged, the relationships formed in this world had become as real and significant as those left behind in Konoha. The revolutionary ship continued its journey through the night, bearing them toward answers that might bridge worlds, or force choices between them. For now, Naruto embraced the uncertainty, finding peace in the knowledge that whether across dimensions or oceans, connections of genuine understanding remained the strongest force in any reality. Dawn arrived with the Ilhuet of Baltigo on the horizon, a mountainous island of white stone and sweeping plateaus that served as the Revolutionary Army's headquarters. Cleverly constructed to blend with the natural landscape, The extensive facilities remained invisible until the ship approached a hidden harbor carved into the island's eastern face. Hancock joined Naruto on deck, her composure restored after the previous day's exertions. She had adapted her appearance to attract less immediate attention, her hair gathered in a practical braid, her clothing functional rather than revealing, yet still commanded respect through presence alone. The revolutionaries maintain impressive operational security, she observed as hidden gun emplacements tracked their approach. Few outside Dragon's inner circle know this location. Making our invitation significant, Naruto concluded. Sabo confirmed this assessment as he guided them ashore. Dragon doesn't extend trust easily, especially regarding matters as sensitive as dimensional research. Your arrival represents an opportunity he's anticipated for years. The revolutionary base revealed itself as a marvel of adaptive architecture, buildings constructed within and around natural rock formations. Utilizing geothermal energy and strategic positioning to remain virtually undetectable from sea or air. Revolutionaries of diverse backgrounds moved with purpose through the complex, many stopping to acknowledge Sabo with evident respect. Our research division occupies the central chambers, Sabo explained, leading them through corridors carved directly into the mountain. Dragon established it before founding the Revolutionary Army itself. His original purpose was understanding world mysteries rather than opposing government corruption. The central chamber proved to be a massive natural cavern transformed into a sophisticated research facility. Massive Den-Den Mushi projectors displayed data across stone walls, while researchers from various disciplines collaborated at workstations organized around a central platform. Atop this platform stood a tall figure in a green cloak, his tattooed face turned toward a large circular apparatus that dominated the chamber's far wall. Even without introduction, Naruto recognized Monkey D. Dragon from descriptions he'd heard, the world's most wanted revolutionary, father of Luffy, and enigmatic opponent of the world government. Welcome to Baltigo. Dragon greeted them, his deep voice carrying easily across the chamber. Empress Hancock, your decision to align with our research rather than world government directives is noted and appreciated. Hancock inclined her head slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement between equals rather than deference. The world government's interest in these matters appears self-serving rather than protective. I prefer forming my own conclusions. Dragon's attention shifted to Naruto, his intense gaze seemingly looking through rather than at him. Naruto Uzumaki, your Arriva, L accelerated processes already in motion, catalyzing dimensional resonance patterns we've monitored for decades. You've been expecting something like me? Naruto asked, surprised by this revelation. Not specifically you, Dragon clarified, but a catalyst, an entity capable of existing in multiple dimensional frequencies simultaneously. Ancient texts reference such beings as boundary walkers, or divided ones. He gestured toward the circular apparatus. This is why I wanted you here. As they approached the platform, Naruto recognized the device as a more sophisticated version of the dimensional viewer Rayleigh had described, a technology capable of detecting and potentially manipulating the barriers between worlds. We call it the threshold mirror, Dragon explained. Constructed from fragments of technology predating the Void Century, it allows observation of dimensional boundaries without destabilizing them. Unlike the world government's crude attempts, added a researcher nearby, which treat dimensional barriers as obstacles to be breached rather than interfaces to be understood. Dragon activated the device with a series of precise adjustments. The circular frame Phi-D with swirling energy patterns reminiscent of the dimensional disturbances Naruto had experienced. Unlike those chaotic manifestations, however, these appeared controlled, structured. We've identified 7 distinct dimensional frequencies adjacent to our reality, Dragon continued. Each separated by specific vibrational differences rather than physical distance. Your world, the shinobi world, occupies the 3rd frequency. The display shifted, focusing on one particular energy pattern that Naruto immediately recognized. It resonated with his chakra, creating a subtle warmth in his chest. That's home, he confirmed. I can feel it. Precisely why you function as a catalyst, Dragon explained. Your natural energy, what you call chakra, vibrates at a frequency that harmonizes with both realities simultaneously. This allows you to maintain stability while existing in our world, but also creates resonance patterns that weaken the dimensional barriers. Hancock studied the display with analytical interest. If his presence weakens these barriers, why has the world government not simply removed him from regions of concern? Because they're pursuing a different agenda, Dragon replied grimly. Their scientists don't want to stabilize the barriers, they want to control them. Specifically, they seek to harness the power released during dimensional transitions. He manipulated the controls, showing recorded footage of marine experiments at a remote facility. Scientists directed concentrated energy at dimensional weak points, measuring the resultant power fluctuations with equipment similar to but cruder than the threshold mirror. They believe this energy could power weapons capable of maintaining absolute control over the world's population, Dragon continued. Weapons that WOULD make even the ancient weapons appear primitive by comparison. But they're destabilizing the natural order, Naruto realized. These barriers exist for a reason. Yes and no, Dragon replied, his expression thoughtful. Our research suggests the barriers were artificially created during the Void Century, not as natural divisions but as deliberate separations. The question becomes, why were these worlds divided in the first place? The implications hung in the air as Dragon directed them to a separate section of the chamber, where ancient artifacts lay preserved in specialized containment units. One in particular drew Naruto's attention, a stone tablet covered in symbols reminiscent of both poneglyph writing and the spiral patterns of Uzumaki sealing techniques. This tablet was recovered from ruins beneath Mariajoy itself. Dragon explained. It describes a conflict so devastating that it threatened to consume all realities, a war between powers described alternately as gods, tailed beasts, and ancient weapons. Naruto exchanged glances with Hancock, both recognizing the significance of these terms. The tailed beasts exist in my world, he confirmed. Kurama, the 9 tails, is sealed within me. And I remember fragments of this history, Kurama added silently. Though the Sage of 6 Paths never revealed the complete truth about our origins. Dragon nodded as if expecting this confirmation. According to these records, the 20 kings who formed the world government used their combined resources to construct a device capable of separating dimensional frequencies. Essentially dividing one reality into multiple parallel worlds. This division distributed the dangerous powers across separate dimensions, preventing any single entity from controlling all of them. So the separation was protective? Hancock questioned. Initially, perhaps, Dragon acknowledged. But it also allowed the 20 kings to establish control over this world by removing those most capable of opposing them, sending some powerful entities to other dimensional frequencies while maintaining weapons and abilities that served their interests. The revelation aligned with historical fragments. Naruto had learned from Elder Nyan and Rayleigh, the mysterious formation of the world government, the strategic elimination of potential opposition, the careful manipulation of historical records. To obscure truths inconvenient to those in power. And now the barriers are failing, Naruto concluded. Not because of my presence, but because they were never meant to be permanent. Precisely, Dragon confirmed. The separation was artificially maintained through technology hidden beneath Mariajoy, technology now deteriorating after 8 centuries of continuous operation. Your arrival accelerated the process, but did not cause it. He returned to the threshold mirror, adjusting settings to display a global map overlaid with pulsing indicators. These are the primary weak points in the dimensional barriers, locations where the frequencies naturally align regardless of intervention. Note the pattern they form. The indicators, when connected, created a spiral pattern extending across the world map, a massive version of the same spiral that appeared on Naruto's stomach when he accessed Kurama's chakra. The 9 tails seal, Naruto whispered in recognition. In your world, it contains a powerful entity within a human vessel. Dragon noted. In our world, it contains multiple realities within a single dimensional framework. The parallel is unlikely to be coincidental. The scope of his revelation left even Hancock momentarily speechless. The implications extended beyond personal concerns to fundamental questions about the nature of reality itself, about whether these separate LDS were meant to exist independently or as aspects of a unified whole. The world government fears reunification, Dragon continued, because it would inevitably undermine their authority. Beings and powers from other dimensional frequencies would disrupt the careful balance of control they've maintained for centuries. While you believe reunification represents natural correction, Hancock observed. I believe truth serves freedom better than comfortable lies, Dragon replied. Whether reunification brings harmony or conflict, the artificial separation represents a fundamental deception on which current world powers have built their authority. Their discussion continued throughout the day, examining historical records, dimensional data, and theoretical models of potential futures. The revolutionary researchers provided insights from diverse perspectives, archaeological, technological, philosophical, creating a comprehensive framework for understanding the phenomena they faced. As evening approached, Dragon directed them to accommodations prepared for their stay. Rest and consider what you've learned. Tomorrow we'll discuss practical implications, including your role in whatever comes next, Naruto Uzumaki. The quarters provided reflected revolutionary pragmatism, comfortable but not luxurious, with adjoining rooms allowing privacy while maintaining proximity. As they settled into this temporary sanctuary, Naruto found himself processing the day's revelations with mixed emotions. It's a lot to absorb, he acknowledged as Hancock joined him on a balcony overlooking the island's western coastline. The setting sun painted the white stone landscape in hues of amber and gold, creating an atmosphere conducive to reflection. Dragon presents compelling evidence, she replied, though his revolutionary perspective inevitably colors his interpretation. Just as the world government's perspective colors theirs, Naruto noted. Everyone has an agenda in this. Including us, Hancock acknowledged with unexpected candor. My priority remains protecting Amazon Lily and the Kuja. Your priority includes finding a way home, or at least understanding why you're here. The statement contained an unspoken question about his intentions, whether home still meant Konoha exclusively or had expanded to include this world. Before he could address this subtext, a knock at the door announced the arrival of a revolutionary messenger. Dragon requests your presence in the observation chamber, the young woman announced. Unusual activity detected at all dimensional weak points simultaneously. They followed urgently, finding the research facility in controlled chaos, scientists monitoring rapidly changing data streams, communications operators coordinating reports from field agents. Dragon himself directing efforts from the central platform. Synchronized pulses at every identified location, he explained as they joined him. Something unprecedented is happening. The threshold mirror displayed erratic patterns. Dimensional frequencies shifting faster than the technology could track. Within Naruto, Kurama stirred with unusual agitation. The barriers are fluctuating, the Nine Tails growled. Not collapsing, but communicating. Naruto repeated aloud, drawing Dragon's attention. Explain, the revolutionary leader requested. Kurama says the diamonds, ional barriers are exchanging information, not breaking down, but establishing connections. Like they're synchronizing. Dragon adjusted the threshold mirror's settings, revealing new patterns in the energy fluctuations. He's right. These aren't random disruptions, they're coherent transmissions across dimensional boundaries. Before they could further analyze this phenomenon, Naruto felt a sudden surge of chakra within him, not from Kurama, but from the seal itself. The spiral pattern on his abdomen glowed through his clothing, resonating with the energy displayed on the threshold mirror. Something's happening, he warned moments before a massive pulse of energy emanated from his body, connecting with the dimensional viewer. The circular frame filled with clear, stable imagery rather than chaotic energy patterns, a window opening between worlds. Unlike previous glimpses, this connection appeared deliberate, controlled from the other side. Within the portal, a familiar face appeared, Sasuke Uchiha. His Rinnegan eye activated and focused on maintaining the connection. Naruto, he acknowledged with characteristic economy. We've established stable communication. Sasuke. Naruto moved closer to the dimensional window. How are you doing this? Combining my Rinnegan with Orochimaru's dimensional research and Shikamaru's calculations, Sasuke explained. We can maintain this connection for approximately 5 minutes before dimensional stress becomes dangerous. Behind Sasuke, Naruto could see others, Kakashi, Sakura, Shikamaru, several Anbu operators, gathered around Complex P meant in what appeared to be a specialized facility beneath Konoha. We've been tracking your dimensional signature, Kakashi explained, stepping forward. The barriers between our worlds are weakening systematically. This creates opportunities for communication, potentially even travel. We've been learning similar things here, Naruto confirmed, gesturing to Dragon and the revolutionary facility. The dimensional separation was artificial, created during what this world calls the Void Century. Shikamaru nodded as if confirming a theory. Our research suggests the same. The Sage of Six Paths left records describing a great division that separated what was once a unified reality into distinct worlds. He described it as a desperate measure to prevent a conflict that threatened all existence. The parallel to Dragon's findings was striking, two separate research efforts reaching similar conclusions from different starting points. This convergence suggested truth rather than mere theory. There's something else, Sakura added, her expression concerned. The dimensional barriers aren't just weakening, they're failing systematically. Our calculations suggest complete collapse within 2 months, resulting in forced reunification of all separated realities, with catastrophic consequences if not properly managed, Shikamaru continued. The energy released during uncontrolled Dimensi Onal collision would devastate both worlds. Dragon absorbed this information with grave attention. Our projections indicate similar timeframes. The world government is attempting to harness this process for weapons development rather than stabilization. As expected of those who benefit from separation, Sasuke commented with characteristic cynicism. We face similar opposition from elements within the Shinobi Alliance who fear change to the established order. The conversation continued rapidly, both sides sharing critical information while the dimensional window remained stable. Technical details, historical discoveries, and strategic considerations flowed between worlds, creating a comprehensive picture of their shared predicament. There is a potential solution, Kakashi finally stated. A controlled reunification process using synchronized stabilization points in both worlds. This would allow gradual reintegration rather than catastrophic collision. The pattern resembles a modified Nine-Tails seal, Shikamaru explained, displaying diagrams that matched those Naruto had seen in the revolutionary facility. With Naruto functioning as the primary anchor point due to his unique UE resonance with both dimensional frequencies. Throughout this exchange, Hancock had observed silently, analyzing implications from her perspective as both warlord and empress. Now she stepped forward, addressing the Konoha delegation directly. This controlled reunification, what would it mean for existing political structures? For territories and sovereignty, Kakashi acknowledged the practical concern. Truthfully, unprecedented change. Current borders and authorities would require renegotiation based on new realities. Some powers would inevitably lose influence while others gain it. Explaining why the world government opposes natural reunification, Dragon noted. Their authority derives directly from the separation they engineered. The dimensional window began flickering, the connection weakening despite Sasuke's efforts to maintain stability. We're reaching the limit, he warned. Dimensional stress is increasing exponentially. We'll establish contact again in 3 days, Kakashi promised. By then, both sides should prepare preliminary stabilization measures at designated convergence points. As the connection began to fail, Sasuke addressed Naruto directly. Your presence in that world isn't coincidence. Naruto, the barriers selected you specifically because your chakra, your entire being, exists in resonance with both frequencies simultaneously. You're the bridge that was always meant to reconnect what was divided. The portal collapsed with a pulse of energy that temporarily disrupted all systems in the revolutionary facility. Backup power engaged immediately, restoring functionality to critical systems while researchers assessed the impact of the interdimensional communication. Naruto stood motionless before the now inactive threshold mirror, processing both the technical information and the personal implications of this contact with his home world. Seeing his friends, hearing their voices, confirming their continued efforts to reach him, these experiences stirred complex emotions. Your people remain determined to retrieve you, Hancock observed, her tone carefully neutral despite the significance of this observation. They're determined to fix what's broken, Naruto corrected gently. The dimensional barriers are failing regardless of anyone's preferences. The only question is whether we manage the process or let it happen chaotically. Gon had already mobilized his researchers, directing them to correlate the new information with existing data and develop preliminary stabilization protocols. Your friends in the shinobi world have independently reached conclusions matching our own, he noted with evident satisfaction. This convergence suggests we're approaching truth rather than convenient theory. The practical implications of their discovery occupied the remainder of the evening, identifying primary convergence points, developing monitoring systems for dimensional stability, establishing communication protocols for coordinating efforts across worlds. Through it all, Naruto felt a growing certainty that his arrival in this world represented not random accident but necessary purpose. When they finally retired to their quarters late that night, the full emotional weight of the day's revelations settled upon them. Hancock stood at the balcony rail, her usual composed expression giving way to contemplative uncertainty as she gazed toward the horizon. "What troubles you?" Naruto asked, joining her in the moonlight. She remained silent for a long moment before responding. "Change," she answered simply. "These revelations suggest transformations beyond individual control, beyond even the influence of powerful figures like Dragon or the Five Elders. Change can be guided if not controlled," Naruto suggested. "That's why coordinated stabilization matters, to direct inevitable processes toward better outcomes." "And who determines what constitutes better?" Hancock challenged. "The world government, revolutionary idealists, shinobi leaders from another dimension. Each defines improvement according to their own interests. The question struck at fundamental issues of authority and legitimacy, matters Hancock understood intimately as both victim of and participant in existing power structures. As Empress, she had protected her people within the current system while recognizing its profound flaws. As warlord, she had accepted compromised sovereignty in exchange for practical protection. "Better means more truth and less deception," Naruto answered after considering her question seriously. "More choice and less coercion. More connection and less isolation. Idealistic principles rarely survive contact with practical governance," Hancock observed, though without dismissing his response. 8 centuries of separation have created distinct civilizations with their own values and priorities. Reunification threatens inevitable conflict regardless of stabilization efforts. Or it creates opportunities for exchange and growth. Naruto countered. "My world has medical techniques that could save countless lives here. Your world has technologies we've never imagined. Separate, we developed different strengths. Together, we could address different weaknesses." His optimism, rather than irritating her as might be expected, seemed to provide counterbalance to her pragmatic caution. Their perspectives, approaching the same situation from different starting assumptions, created a more comprehensive assessment than either could achieve alone. "What happens after stabilization?" she asked, addressing the unspoken question that had hovered between them since the communication with Konoha. "When dimensional barriers no longer prevent travel between worlds." The question carried personal implications. Beyond its practical significance, would he return permanently to his home world once passage became possible? Would the connections formed during his time on Amazon Lily persist when alternatives became available? "I don't know exactly," Naruto admitted, respecting her enough to offer honesty rather than comfortable reassurance. "But I know dimensional reunification doesn't erase relationships formed during separation. It adds possibilities rather than eliminating them." He moved closer, the moonlight illuminating both their faces as they turned toward each other. "The past 6 months changed me, Hancock. Changed how I see myself. My purpose, my place in existence. Whatever happens with these dimensional barriers, that change remains part of who I am now." Something in his words or express. Sion seemed to resolve a question in her mind. With uncharacteristic directness, she reached out, her hand lightly touching his face in a gesture more intimate than any they had shared previously. "You persistently defy categorization, Naruto Uzumaki," she observed, her voice softer than usual. "Neither subject nor enemy, neither transient visitor nor permanent resident. You exist between definitions just as you exist between worlds." "I've never been good at fitting into expected categories," he replied with a slight smile, covering her hand with his own. "But I've always been certain about what, and who, matters to me." The moment between them carried weight beyond words, acknowledgement of connections formed gradually through shared experiences, mutual respect, and growing understanding. Nay, either rushed to define this evolution explicitly, recognizing that labels would only constrain what had developed organically. Whatever comes, Hancock stated with quiet certainty, Amazon Lily Rime. NS your sanctuary for as long as you choose it. Not as obligation or politics, but as recognition of who you have become to its people. The unspoken addition, and to its Empress, remained tactfully implied rather than declared. Some truths required no verbal confirmation to be understood by both parties. As night deepened around them, they remained on the balcony, discussing practical concerns out the days ahead while allowing the deeper currents of their relationship to flow naturally beneath the surface of conversation. The imminent transformation of their worlds, perhaps the greatest GE in 8 centuries, provided context that made personal evolution seem both momentous and natural. In his mindscape, Kurama observed these developments with satisfaction rather than surprise. The foe, X had witnessed Naruto's growth from isolated child to respected leader, his capacity for connection consistently proving stronger than circumstances designed to prevent it. That this pattern would continue across dimensional boundaries merely confirmed what the Nine Tails had always known about his host's essential nature. The worlds divided may have separated powers, Kurama reflected, but the why failed to anticipate how connection transcends artificial boundaries. Perhaps that is the true lesson in all of this, that relationship ultimately proves stronger than separation, regardless of the forces attempting to maintain division. As Naruto and Hancock continued their conversation under stars that suddenly seemed less alien and more familiar, this truth manifested in quiet words and subtle gestures that acknowledged what had grown between them, a connection that would persist regardless of which worlds collided or combined in the days ahead. Chapter 2 End.